It all comes down to this. We have reached the end of the Royale Masters Gold Edition. 8 players still stand vying for the lion's share of that $25,000 prize and, of course, the final community golden ticket. Hello, everybody. I am Andrew Guy, joined always by Joshua AC Sharon, our 2-time regional champ. And AC, we're down to 8, man. We've been here for a whole entire month plus now, and we've got just the 8 players remaining. How you feeling about today?
I mean, I'm feeling good. It's all been working until this point. I mean, I want it to happen. I'm sick and tired of last chance qualifiers and qualifiers all around. I want to see playoffs.
It's been a long road for these players to get to where they are here today. So let's take a quick look at our event, the entire run of Royale Masters Gold Edition. It all started with this format.
Yes, sir. The first 3 weeks were qualifiers 1, 2, and 3. If you were lucky enough to win, you pretty much guaranteed yourself a spot. You were looking for that top 4 total qualification points. Let's say you weren't able to do it. As for those players weren't, there was a last chance qualifier, a wild card open, where there was another top 4 placement. Those 8 players made it to the playoffs. This is what we're going to be watching today and tomorrow, and they are vying for that golden ticket.
That's right, and we're going to look here at our Royale Masters duel format. It's been great. Best of 3s for the most part for the entire run. But during our grand finals, every single elimination game in our lower bracket and, of course, our grand finals will be a best of 5. So how does it work? Well, you start out in your very first game. You can bring whatever deck you want to the table. If you win with that deck, you cannot repeat any of those 8 cards. However, if you lose, you can repeat any of the cards you want. You can run back the same deck. You can bring back the same champion. That is the way that the Royale Masters duel format looks. And our playoffs. You heard me talk about it just a moment ago. It's going to be all best of 3s, except for our elimination best of 5 matches in the lower bracket, and of course our grand finals. That is right here. You can see the top 4 from qualifiers, as AC just said, the top 4 from the wild card open, which was a stacked top 4 to join the original 4 that made it off of qualifier points. It is double elimination. People are always talking about how single elimination best of 3s are so brutal. Best of 5 might even things up a little bit. However, that dual format makes it a little more difficult. So we're giving you guys best of 5s for those most important elimination games. We're about to talk about our prize pool, but AC, before we do that, we have 8 players here in this competition. The 4 that joined last week were really stacked. Do you think our 4 from the qualifiers have an advantage, or our 4 from the last chance qualifier have the advantage?
You know, it's amazing to run with consistency, and it's amazing to run with momentum. And, you know, that's going to be the difference between those 4 players. You know, I usually tend to go with consistency, but I think for this one, I have to go with the momentum. I mean, you have such talented players, and I really do believe that it's going to be the Lucases, it's going to be the Moogies that do have, you know, they have the best potential to win it.
I love that. Consistency and momentum, 2 very different states of mind to be in. That's very true. Let's take a look here at our prize pool. That consistency has definitely paid off for someone like Furkan, who placed very well in our early qualifiers. But when you look at our playoffs and the prize pool here, AC, 25 grand on the line this weekend.
That's right. I mean, we had 25 grand over the past month, with the open qualifiers being 7,000 each, wild card being 4,000, but playoffs, $10,000 and a golden ticket going to first, 6,000 for second, 3,000, 2,000 for third and fourth, 1,500, 1,000 for fifth and sixth, and 800 and 700 for seventh and eighth.
We are
$25,000.
talking about playoffs here. That is right. It is time. Let's take a look here at our bracket. We're going to be looking at 8 matches today. So obviously we're going to be moving from top to bottom there, with our first match being Furkan versus Lucas. Then we're going to move all the way down. Then we're going to stay with our winners bracket. So the 4 winners will watch their next matches. After those 6 matches in the upper bracket, we will move down to the losers bracket, the lower bracket, the elimination bracket. Call it what you want. And we'll be looking at the first 2 matchups there. So we will be seeing our 8th and 7th place competitors today. They will be eliminated after their best of 5 down in that elimination bracket. And to just touch on what you were saying before we hop into games, I really do love what you were saying about momentum versus consistency. And when we talk about those players in our very first matchup, in most of our matchups, that's exactly what we're going to see, because we're seeing 4 from the qualifiers facing off against the 4 from our wild card open. So it's going to be a mix-up every single match, just like the first one with Lucas, who came out in dominant fashion throughout a lot of our qualifiers, but he just wasn't having the luck that he needed. However, we got to that wild card open, and he brought it all to play. He's going to be going up against Furkan, our highest scoring person from the qualifiers. So this is a pretty tough matchup. Furkan was really blowing us away with his gameplay, man. He was doing so great with E-Giant. You kept talking about how, look, if Furkan runs E-Giant, it doesn't matter the matchup, doesn't matter when it is, doesn't matter what variant of that E-Giant deck. He is so good with understanding the macro of those beatdowns. Then you go to Lucas on the other side of it, one of the best cycle players in the game, one of the best players in the game. However, both of them landed in that 32nd spot at World Finals last year. So here we go. Our very first matchup of the Royale Masters Finals is going to be Lucas going up against Furkan, Brazil and Turkey. This is going to be a great one. AC, I am ready for the action, brother.
I'm hearing in our ear that we are ready to game, or ready to go to game, and we're not in the game. I want this, like, yes, I am so ready for this as well.
He's teasing us. He's teasing us, Tasty Bacon, up in our booth. Our more of a well, we're not really in a place where he could be sitting above us in a booth, but he's been there with us the whole ride along. And here we go. Lucas spotting your screen. Furkan at the top. I'm very curious if Furkan will be going right to Royal Giant early on. I was looking back at his battle log. He's been playing a ton of RG, which already for Lucas looks nice. It is RG, but he's got that mortar, of course, to tank for it, and that Ice Spirit can be really, really great in stopping that final RG shot.
That's absolutely right. The Ice Spirit has been a fun addition to a lot of these mortar decks, and just a lot of decks in general. It's that slowdown is so necessary, and it's just so strong in general. And so, yeah, it's good to see it get back into the meta right here. That is a solid defense from Lucas, and a lot of potential on offense, but that Ghost is perfectly placed. Can the Ghost get a couple shots? With the help of the log, it does and stays alive.
Beautiful interactions there on both sides. Lucas was able to pop his ability and get the Valkyrie down just in time to get the damage in on the RG. He used the Ice Spirit, and of course the Valkyrie distracted that Fisherman. So already both of these guys on top of their interactions. Lucas is down just a hair. RG shot did come in, I believe, and along with that Lightning, 2677 to 2878. And Lucas drops a Mega Minion down, which he's also got to be pretty happy about. He's got a lot of great single target DPS.
Yeah, the only weird thing is that he doesn't have a small spell. I was trying to figure out why he was able to fit in the Mega Minion, and yeah, that's a very interesting choice to use in Game 1. Poison, but no log, no bar barrel, no snowball, just a straight up poison as the only spell.
Yeah, and it looks like he's going to try to use that Ice Spirit as a bit of a log in the terms of slowing it down, maybe preparing himself for later matches when he wants the log available. Furkan, though, on top of his cycle, gets the second RG down, pops his ability just in time. We need to see something from Lucas. There it is. It's an Ice Spirit, but still AQ back on top of Lucas's AQ. Lightning comes in, 2302, and a Fish Point to protect. Furkan is keeping up the pressure.
Yeah, that Archer Queen is staying alive so long. 7 seconds left, gets the ability popped. The log will also allow for another truth to be forced out of Lucas's hand. 2 minutes, we are now in overtime. And the RG in the back cycle from Furkan, and the Archer Queen at the bridge from Lucas, trying to apply just a little bit of pressure.
Not one of your favorite moves, not really one of mine either, but it is a really great use of just getting your opponent's offense out of cycle, making sure he's breaking up where he's placing his cards. But that Lightning has been getting so much value, and I've been here many, many times before being a mortar player. That Lightning can be so frustrating to play against. It feels like you have nowhere to place that mortar without giving great value other than up high at the bridge. And you see Furkan always ready with that, with the AQ always cycled up high and in the middle. So already Furkan in charge of game number 1. Lucas now trying to get on offense, gets the mortar down. Furkan trades lanes.
2493 to 1562, just brilliant defense from Furkan. And yeah, just applying pressure, taking out cannon carts, taking out opposing Archer Queens whenever he can. And I mean, really, it comes down to how he's using this Archer Queen, and it's always popped at the bridge, and it is always protected, and that's just how you want to play this matchup.
Nice Ice Spirit there. Lucas decides to double down on this push, but he has nothing to stop this RG. No log to knock it back. No Ice Spirit in cycle. And that AQ gets taken off the board by a great Lightning, and the Lightning hits the cannon cart as it comes down. That's going to be game number 1 to Furkan in the driver's seat the entire time. And Lucas probably very frustrated with how that matchup went. You know, you look at the way his deck was constructed, and obviously the log would have been a really nice tool to have in there to knock back. The Ice Spirit kept being found out of cycle or getting logged off of the board, and that's probably a big part of why Lucas was struggling in this matchup. I think the other part of it, though, AC, was just that this is not a great matchup. I've been here many, many times before, and running into a Lightning RG deck with the Fisherman to pull away the cannon cart or to tank for the Valkyrie, that Lightning just gets so much value for that entire game.
Yeah, especially, I mean, what was the interaction at the end where it caught the mortar, the Archer Queen, and the cannon cart or something?
Yeah,
I mean, that is a 6 for 14 trade. That is an insurmountable amount of elixir that you just lost because of that beautiful Lightning timing. This is a matchup where I really thought it was going to be a lot closer. But yeah, I don't know if it's the log. I don't know if it's the lack of stronger defenses, but it definitely has a lot to do with the Archer Queen gameplay from Furkan.
Yeah, and when you look back at what now is not available for Furkan, obviously the 8 cards that we just saw, Furkan can no longer use. So for Lucas, does that mean he goes back to using Archer Queen once again? It's one of his favorite champions. Yes, you can see him tweeting all the time about how broken Golden Knight is, but when AQ is available and Lightning is not, that is one of those things where you wonder if he wants to just run it back. He loves Mortar, he loves Miner. It's a good Miner poison control deck. The AQ could come right back out. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw him run it back, knowing that he could run into E-Giant. However, sometimes you feel a little bit salty after running a deck and losing with it, and maybe he'll change things up here as we go into game number 2. Furkan, on the other side of it, we've been mostly focusing on what maybe Lucas did wrong or maybe didn't work out for him deck choice-wise. What did you like what you saw out of Furkan?
I mean, the consistent gameplay that we've seen for the past, 3 weeks or so was there. No use of the Electro Giant, which is always scary for your opponent when he has that available for games 2 and 3.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I think it's just as simple as a deck that wasn't Electro Giant was perfectly played from Furkan.
And like I said, looking back at his battle log, he was playing a lot of Royal Giant, maybe something that Lucas could have been a bit more prepared for. However, here we go into game number 2. This is a best of 3. So if Furkan wins, he will move on to face off against the winner of Grico and Schwarzen. Furkan starting off with Royal Hogs at the bridge. Lucas getting a nice King Tower activation early on.
So Lucas should be running Drill, and there we go, we do see the Drill. Usually when you see the 2 1 Elixir Spirits, well, I guess 1 Elixir Spirit and then Skeletons as well, with the addition of the NATO, it does mean that they're trying to get as many Magic Archers and as many Drills up on the board, so that's probably what we're going to be seeing. Furkan on the other side, Royal Hogs plus Mortar, a lot of offense, and yeah, just a really, really good start for Furkan because he has shown Valk, and so that it is going to be able to defend the Drill. But as we all know, Drill, you can have 8 counters to the Drill, and the Drill's still getting damage.
Yeah, Drill is so powerful right now. Lucas going to have to deal with this push on the right-hand side. He actually missed one of the Royal Hogs with that Fireball, but the Skellies plus the King Tower will help. 2350 to 2519, and I was going to say this looks like it's probably the Golden Knight version of this deck, as we saw Lucas cycle that in the back. He's back to Magic Archer already. Nice control of his cycle there, and this is also one of those frustrating interactions as a Mortar player. Magic Archer at the bridge, nothing to spend on it, brings that tower all the way down to 2114. And then he decides to NATO this away, but the Musketeer gets 3 shots. That's a big, big time swing by that Musketeer.
Yeah, I am shocked that it was able to get that much damage. Unfortunate interaction for Lucas, and he's going to be forced to Golden Knight with the Fireball on defense. So that is a lot of elixir to be spending for those Royal Hogs. At this point, Furkan really does need to watch out. Try to avoid the Magic Archer potential at the bridge.
Nice play there by Lucas. Gets the drill in just in time. Gets the Inferno Tower on top of that mortar. And another Magic Archer here at the bridge. Furkan's going to have to be a little bit more cognizant and more aware of these Magic Archers and where they are in the cycle. Cannon Cart does connect for one shot. Now a Fireball maybe coming out on the right-hand side. Perfect Fireball plus Fire Spirit there from Lucas. And he should be back in the driver's seat after this charge. There it is, 1530 remaining on that tower. High Mortar goes for this King Tower activation with the Skellies, but the Mortar's still locked on the Golden Knight. And a nice catch here by Furkan.
Yeah, the Musketeer does, take the aggro of the Inferno Tower, but definitely not what he was looking for. Furkan does have a slight misstep. Puts the Royal Hogs on top of the 80% health Musketeer, and that's just way too easy for Lucas to get the Fireball out. Aggressive Magic Archer, but again, we just see Fireballs every single time, and Furkan does need to switch things up. He has no chance of getting damaged this way.
Yeah, and it's really, really difficult with all the options that Lucas has to distract the mortar and, of course, clean up those Royal Hogs. So Furkan's going to maybe try to get him another mortar down. Lucas gets the Inferno Tower down preemptively. There's the mortar after the Cannon Cart gets in front of its sight range. And once again, bad interactions here with that Musketeer, just giving it away to the Inferno Tower 2 cycles now in a row. And Magic Archer comes down at the bridge. That's another great lineup from Lucas. Right-hand side lineup, left-hand side drill is in. And Lucas is very much in control of game number 2, ahead by about 400 plus HP. Fireball will come in, and these fireballs, like you just called, AC, very, very easy for Lucas to pull the trigger on.
Tries to predict the Magic Archer at the bridge with the Cannon Cart. Lucas going to play a little bit slower, and just full domination from Lucas at this point of time. 30 seconds left, another Fireball on defense, another Fire Spirit to fully clean it up, and just way too easy for him. He also, I think, has another Magic Archer, and that's exactly right. He should just be able to win with a NATO back.
There it is. Great call, AC. Magic Archer down at the bridge. NATO to pull that Cannon Cart back. And Lucas does exactly what you want to see him do here in a bounce back game number 2. And that cycle was just dirty.
He was getting around to every Magic Archer. Every time he defended, it was, he's spending 4 elixir. He's spending, sometimes as much as 9 elixir. And then, the counter push wasn't anything special from Furkan, because he was just defending cleanly on Lucas's side, and then always getting Magic Archers up, always forcing out Fireballs, always forcing out Bridge Musketeers, and always forcing out the wrong play.
And it was really, really great stuff that we saw from the Inferno Tower plays from Lucas. Now, he only got 4 of them down, a couple of them on top of mortars, or I think one was on top of a mortar, one was in the middle of the map, and the other 2 just inhaled those Musketeers. That was one of the biggest, I think, missteps throughout that entire game, was just Furkan not being able to get good value from his Musketeers. And because of where the Infernos were placed, and because of all the options Lucas had, Furkan never really went for the split piggies in the middle. He was always basically going in one lane, giving all of that Fireball value. So Lucas takes a look at what's available, what his opponent might want to play, and has a great deck draw in game number 2.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not like it was terrible for him that, like, his opponent kept using the Fireball plus the Fire Spirit, because it's always a 5 for 5.
Right.
But when your win condition is just decimated every single time, really at the bridge, there was pretty much like one instance where the Royal Hogs even crossed the bridge. I mean, it was just so clean, and it was so fast.
It's one of those things where Lucas got that King Tower activation in early on, and then recognized, look, if I just go for a Fireball, my King Tower will help clean up, or if I go for a Fireball plus Fire Spirit, as we're deeper into double and triple elixir, like you said, that 5 for 5 trade is something you want to do 10 times out of 10. That's the only way your opponent can really, really throw you off base, because you have so many good options to respond to the mortar. And I think that was really maybe more of the story in game number 2, was just that Furkan had 2 win conditions, and neither of them he could make effective, whether it was Magic Archers on top of mortars up high, or the drill distracting the mortars, what have you, high Infernos. There was just really no way. And that's why, even though I liked the deck that we saw from Furkan, when I've run Royal Hogs plus mortar decks, sometimes they really can struggle when you come into matchups that just have a building plus Fireball. And that's exactly what he ran into.
Yeah, and you pointed it out, I think it was at the end, where he didn't, he wasn't, using double lane split pressure. It was Royal Hogs every single time. all on the right side. And if you throw them over the middle and you have the cannon cart on one lane and you have the mortar on the other lane, there's a lot of potential. And when you only have fireball as a spell, when you don't have earthquake, when you don't have lightning, when you don't have something that can take the building out of the, out of the scenario, then you really need to be switching it up. And that's definitely, it definitely showed that it was Furkan playing that matchup and it wasn't Lucas, or it wasn't, one of these quick cycle, really, really talented players, because they would have known in those situations, you have to be mixing it up.
So here we go, going into game number 3, our first game that will send someone down to that elimination bracket. It's going to be between Furkan and Lucas, obviously, the players that we've been watching so far. Lucas has a lot available still. The things he does not have available: Drill, Fireball, NATO, Magic Archer, Golden Knight, and Inferno Tower. And those are big-time cards that are very, very useful in a lot of decks out there, but it looks like he's going back to maybe Miner plus Mortar, as he did struggle with that in game number 1. Furkan, no Lightning, no Log, no RG, no AQ, no Royal Ghost, no Fish Boy, and it looks like for him on this bait deck, no problem. He does know that there is no NATO to activate King, but Lucas does have Log this time around, and Lucas doesn't go for the tough Valkyrie placement to try to clean up that barrel. He just goes for the safe placement up high to clean up the 2 goblins. Takes a couple stabs there. 23-77. And this matchup is an interesting one. I've been in this one many, many times before as well. It's like there's been mortar in every single game, which I have loved. But you wonder when Lucas will start to use those mortars defensively, or if he'll keep them on offense. He'll rely on minor chip damage. We'll just have to wait and see.
Very good gameplay from Furkan so far. Places the Dark Goblin just outside of the range. Skeletons on top of the Miner to take it out. 2600 to 2246 after the Log. Doesn't quite get there, and that's going to be a lot of potential damage with the Double Goblin Barrel.
Wow, and Lucas just decides to eat the entire barrel because he is so low in Elixir. A little surprised there, but now he's got a 3 Elixir lead, and you can see there on his camera, he's trying to figure out what he wants to do here. He's about to take to 10. You have to imagine he's going to play something. Maybe Cannon Cart in the back. No, he goes AQ in the back instead.
Yeah, just a huge mistake to use the Log on top of the Dark Goblin. He had to tank that damage. It would have been 200, 300 damage, and instead gives up 1200, 1300.
Yeah, really, really tough there. The Ice Spirit was a nice little cherry on top there for Furkan. You see a high Skarmy here, plus the Mighty Miner Dark Goblin behind, going to help take that AQ off the board. And nice placement there on that Valkyrie. And going to go to the back this time. There's the Log. And 2 Cannon Carts plus this Dark Goblin, and maybe this is where Lucas's patience is going to come into play. Now he has a, I don't even know, an army at the bridge here with 2 Cannon Carts and a Valkyrie. Miner goes on top of the Dark Goblin and does take it off the board. No, it does not, but the mortar shot will.
Yeah, brilliant defense right there, but it's just whether or not he can make it through. The Dark Goblin comes out once again. It is going to be able to take out the cannon. Mortar is going to be taken off the map. 1791 to 1176 brings it all the way back and finally sets up with another push. That reset was great. He got the damage that he needs, and then he got the Elixir advantage that he needed as well. Really good job, and that's going to be an early Ice Spirit. Messes up the timing, but because it is a mirrored Dark Goblin, it does stay alive.
Yeah, that is an interaction that was really, really nice there for Furkan. Mortar Shot does go to the Dark Goblin, doesn't clean it up. This Poison, however, is going to get a ton of value for Lucas. So going back to a lot of the cards that we saw him run in game number 1, feeling good about it here in game number 3, although down by 600 HP. And that all comes back to what you were talking about just a moment ago, AC. That barrel getting a ton of value instead of taking those Dark Goblin shots. Because of that, Lucas looking far behind here.
Does mess up once again. If he had placed the Mighty Miner in front, Dark Goblin would have been able to stay alive. Skeletons do get the split. Can the Mighty Miner take off the entire Mortar's health? No. Mortar will survive with about 20% health. Needs to defend this. Ice Spirit does go to the Miner instead of the Bats, so those Bats will wreak havoc unless stopped.
Lucas getting so much value from those poisons time and time again. Needs to make sure he plays great defense on top of these barrels. Those are really the only danger that he has to worry about in this game. No big spell out for Furkan, and a nice early Dark Goblin gets right on top of that mortar. Yes, the mortar does take out the Dark Goblin, but damage already done. But this counter push is massive.
We are going to see the abuse of the ability does push back some of the troops, but the cannon cart will stay alive, so does need the Skarma to take it out. That's exactly what happens. That is not going to be more damage, so it's just, can he get one? I mean, he really just needs one Goblin Barrel onto the tower to have potential to win, but it's just such strong defense from Lucas every time.
Nice log there. Late plays the log. Double barrel comes down 576 to 547. Lucas going to go back in with a minor poison. Just needs something to get on top of this drill. Does he have anything? He doesn't have anything for the drill. Valkyrie comes down late. There's the log. Log misses the bottom goblin, but that is going to be enough. And you can see Lucas grabbing at his heart. And Furkan a little upset. Throws out a little BM. Great set there from the Brazilian.
Yeah, I mean, what an incredible game number 3. The offensive pressure from both players was insane. The use of the Goblin Barrels, but never, never overextending with it. He always kept the right amount of elixir to still get that one defense off. There was Prediction Miners to try and take out the Ice Spirits, Prediction Miners to try and take out the Dark Goblins, poison timing to force out Skarmies when, the Skarmy is just going to die out to the poison. Just a great back and forth from two special players.
Yeah, that is a really good way to put it. Very, very special, both of them. But Furkan does go down to the elimination bracket, so that consistency that you intimated about at the top of the day today needs to stay strong, because Furkan is the very first player that we're seeing that could be eliminated today, but he has one more best of 5 to stay alive. Lucas on the other side of it, that minor poison was just so brutal for Furkan to keep up with. Those poisons were getting so much value on top of the Skarmy, on top of the Dark Goblin. Every single time if the cannon was down, it would get value on top of that. Really, really great stuff there from Lucas. And the poise that we see from someone that's as experienced and as talented as Lucas, being able to keep things together at the end of that game. You saw him grab his heart and take that big sigh of relief, but still, while he was locked in, he was making great plays. And those late plays on the log were some of the best things that we saw so far today.
And right here we do look at it, and it is just crazy how quick the deck on the right cycles. And I love that. I mean, I love that the Dark Goblin was used 13 times. That's exactly what you want to be using, or, that's exactly how you want to be playing that matchup. You want to be throwing the Dark Goblin out all the time. When the log is always used on the Goblin Barrels, the Dark Goblins will always get value. On the left side, not a lot of offense. The Archer Queen was only placed 5 times. Mortar was only placed 5 times. It really had everything to do with a great offensive push from Furkan early, and then just a beautiful, just a beautiful knowledge of how to play the matchup. When you're down early, you have to overwhelm. You have to get that one crazy push that your opponent can't stop. And he sort of did that, but then he reset perfectly and eventually got the damage.
And another huge part about winning that matchup is taking care of the first barrel without using the log, right? Whether it's with the Valkyrie or the cannon cart, other units you can drop down. And when you look back at the amount of Dark Goblins that were played, and 13 of them, there's also the other number on that screen that really stood out to me, and that was 15 leaked elixir from Furkan. And when you're playing that deck that cycles that quickly, gets around that quickly, when you can have a Mighty Miner on the board and have a 3-card cycle, I really believe leaking 15 elixir is just way too much. That's something that Furkan needs to make sure he locks down when he plays that deck again in the future. And also he needs to do maybe a little bit better job of protecting some of those Dark Goblins that just didn't get quite as much value that he would have needed. Dark Goblin's still one of the most powerful cards in the game, not going to get touched by those balance changes. So I imagine we'll still be seeing this deck or a version of this deck in the new meta, which will be starting on Monday. So as the Royale Masters Gold Edition comes to an end, so does our season, so does our current meta. So many things are going to be ending tomorrow when that golden ticket is given away. And then we're a week away from that 20-win challenge, which means all the players out there in the world that are looking to get into that Clash Royale League qualifier, that 6-stage, month-long gauntlet, you're going to have to do it in a brand new meta next week. So right now, these guys taking what has been very strong here in the current meta. A lot of Mortar so far today. Royal Giant we've seen be very successful in Royale Masters. And of course, this deck, you wonder if the deck that Furkan just ran, do you like the version with the big spell more, or do you like this version more?
There was a lot of things that I loved about this version. And I mean, look, Minor Poison is always going to be the most difficult matchup. You're going to have the quick cycle, you're going to have the Falcon response to the Goblin Barrels that, when they are placed perfectly, when they are pre-placed, it is always going to be getting, you know, all of them taken out. And then they have the log, so then you can't go in with a Goblin Barrel Mirror. So it was a very bad matchup, and he still showed a lot of promise. He still showed the potential to take out, you know, to actually win the game. So I actually do really love that variation of that deck.
Yeah, I mean, it gets around so quickly, and as you guys saw, so many Dark Goblins came out there from Furkan. But like you said, that controlling of those miners with the poison is just almost impossible. The only thing you can really play is getting that Mighty Miner on top, but a lot of time you'd have to use that Mighty Miner to set the line at the bridge. So here we go. King Tower activation early on. Schwarzen going, all right, that's okay. I do get the King Tower activated, but I did take one shot there from the wall breakers. Grico on the other side of it, on the left-hand side of your screen. Great Japanese pro here, one that we know very, very well. Haven't seen a whole lot of him in 2022, but after this run here, I imagine that will change. Whether he gets a golden ticket this weekend or not, I'm sure he'll be going for that 20-win challenge plus and trying to get to those world finals.
Yeah, it really is unfortunate that the meta is changing, because I think that might be the reason why I don't get my 20-win.
Yeah, me too. I'm just kidding, man. I know you can get it.
That's right. 140 left. Ewiz on defense against the drill. Will be able to get a little bit of offensive pressure. Does force out the Valk over the middle, but the Valk will be able to walk to the left. So perfectly placed from Grico. He can choose to go in on offense, and that's exactly what he does. I don't know if Schwarzen is going to have a great response to this. He is going to be able to defend it, but that is a 5 elixir response to just, I mean, really just wall breakers, because the Valk was placed on defense, so that's really a 5 for 2.
Yeah, and you see right there the Inferno really just setting the line for Grico. He goes right back on offense. Fire Spirit at the bridge, drill down behind. Royal Ghost goes up high to deal with that Fire Spirit. Fireball damage. Obviously, a Fire Spirit's doing more than a Fireball, so you really can't just take those over and over. And Schwarzen running a deck that we have seen be very, very successful throughout this entire Royale Masters Gold Edition run. And Grico not going to get the timing here with the Bomber, but does get wall breakers in right behind. Barrel comes down just in time, and that timing there from Schwarzen was immaculate.
He was over the middle because he didn't want to allow the Inferno Tower to heat up. Are we going to see the Valve placed on top? We do see the Valve placed on top of the Ewiz, but it is going to miss the Giant Skeleton. Guards will still be able to take out the Drill, still be able to take out the Golden Knight, so a great situation for those. And now, once we hit overtime, this is where the pressure becomes insane. So difficult to stop. It really knows no bounds when it comes to just what it can do once, late double and early triple happens.
And Grico showcasing that right now as he goes wall breakers in the right-hand lane, Valkyrie in the left. Last little interaction that went down on Schwarzen's side of the map, I believe it was just a Fire Spirit that connected to that tower that brought it down to 2080. So while this game doesn't feel like anyone's run away with it yet, Schwarzen is getting farther and farther behind in damage. Now about 1,000 HP behind on the left-hand side. But he does have that right-hand tower down to 2472. Guard's going to come out in response, along with the Bomber. So maybe a little bit of an overspend there, but did want to deal with that Ewiz.
Yeah, the great thing about using the Bomber right there is that now you kind of have the potential to go in on the right side. The Bomber will be able to get a shot, and now the right side is just a little bit lower. These Valks, because they are not used on the Drill, are actually, that's exactly what you want to be seeing. If you use the Valk on top of the Drill, you are going to be giving up a lot of, Magic Archer potential. And so the fact that he's using the guards, always allowing himself to have the quick cycle, it's just exactly what you want.
And Grico watching those NATOs come in from a mile away as those Golden Knights cross the bridge, using everything he can, whether it's the Fire Spirit or the Wall Breakers, this time using the Inferno Tower, just not allowing Schwarzen to get that dash connection to come through from the Golden Knight. And like you were just talking about, with the way he's been defending, not giving Magic Archer value at all. So Schwarzen just having a really difficult time creating any sort of offense other than just getting drills in. So now he goes Giant Skelly at the bridge, drill down low. This time Guard's used up high, maybe a Valkyrie comes down low, there it is. Guard's still up, but now needs to get something else down. There's the Fire Spirit, and that's a really nice dash from Schwarzen, just waiting in the wings the entire game. Magic Archer lines up as well. Fireball gonna come in, but nothing else is there. And now Schwarzen comes away with the win, 999 to 1061, all off of one beautiful send.
I cannot believe it. Able to get the damage, wins by 62 HP. You know, no fireball. I mean, not even in cycle, just no elixir for it. We see the panic from Grico's side, and just a great push, but also just, I don't know how he let that happen.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only thing that could have made that game go the way it did, was allowing that Golden Knight to get that chain to the Princess Tower with the bomber placed low. And then just to add insult to injury, all the while the Magic Archer finally lies up for Schwarzen for the first time the entire game. So you have a Golden Knight dash, takes out the bomber, you've used your Fire Spirit, you've used your wall breakers, I believe, to try to distract it, and then you still get the Magic Archer lineup. So that was just a great example of patience with that deck. It feels like a lot of times when you see people run that deck, all they can do is just get drills in, get that Golden Knight dash in, try to get the Magic Archer chip. They're always hyper aggressive. And while Schwarzen was pretty aggressive throughout the game, that last orchestrated offense was not by accident. He was waiting for Grico to spend everything he could defensively and then use that Golden Knight dash. I loved what we saw there in game number 1.
Yeah, and I just really expected to be talking about, you know, Grico. The entire game, I was preparing statements. I had things written down, and then now I don't get to use any of them. Just a crazy ending for the game number 1, and yeah, just really shocked that he let that slip away.
It's one of those things about Clash Royale that never gets, you never get tired of watching it happen, but of course when you're playing, it's one of the most frustrating, and that's another thing that I wonder about, is Grico's mentality going into game number 2. He was in so much control for the entirety of that game. It was literally just one push that went awry, and as Clash Royale does, you can still lose your whole tower or just lose the game with just one miss or ill-defended push there, and Schwarzen just lined everything up perfectly. Grico, I mean, I'd still like to hear some of the stuff that you had to say, because he didn't really do anything wrong until the very end, and even then it was still only 62 HP. He just needed a little bit more time. AC, what was the great stuff that we saw from him as we hop into game number 2? You can maybe highlight just a couple things, right?
Yeah, I mean, basically, I just love that he used the guards on defense, the Valk, to really take out the support troops instead of the actual drill. That right there was probably the most special thing. And then I think other than that, you know, there was a lot of great offensive pressure, utilizing the Valk on defense and then as a barrier to protect your wall breakers to force out extra elixir. I think it was those main 2 things that I really liked from game number 1.
Yeah, I love that you pointed out the discipline that it took for him to continue to use the guards on defense and only use the Valkyrie up high. Very true there. But here we are, game in number 2. Schwarzen up 1, goes to Royal Giant. Grico goes to Minion Horde, Mortar with Cannon Cart and Skelly King. Probably going to have a Skarmy in there as well. Goes Miner defensively.
RG from Schwarzen in game number 2. I love that choice because, you know, I mean, RG is just very good overall, but also just Schwarzen is really good with RG. He's one of the better RG players. He's been playing it for the longest, and he was certainly probably one of the most excited players that RG was in the meta, you know, when it first started, because he just runs it all the time in competitive.
That Mother Witch going to get a lot of value in this matchup, whether it's on the Horde or the Skarmy or the Spawn Skellies from Grico's Skeleton King, so he's going to have to be very aware of that. And a lot of times when we've seen the Miner Mortar deck succeed against this style of RG deck, you have to catch that Mother Witch with fireballs instantaneously or predictive miners. So we'll see what route Grico decides to go, as he does take the charge damage there on the right-hand side, tries to shake it off real quick, as you can see on his camera. But right now, Schwarzen doing a great job. Grico leaking just a hair of elixir there. You can see the sweat on Grico's forehead. That's how you know how intense this gameplay is. You love to see it.
Archer Queen will be able to pop its ability right there. Does not lock onto the cannon cart, so that will be able to get value on offense. Cannon Cart does stay alive, and that's going to be massive. You know the Cannon Cart isn't going to be able to stay alive, but you do know that it will take out the Dark Prince. And so that is just a really good situation right there. RG will come down, and we are going to see a log. So just great defense from Schwarzen, a lot of, potential offense from Grico, but right here we will see the Skarmy. I wasn't sure if we were gonna see the Skarmy, the Minion Horde, but either way, great defense, and you cannot let that happen.
Yeah, that's 2 times in a row now where that Dark Prince has gotten his charge off when Grico did not want it to happen, whether it was on top of the Princess Tower or that time around it went to the Dark Goblin. And the timing and the placements from Grico just a step off. And that's something he's going to have to clean up over the next minute and 50. We are in overtime here. Mother Witch down, but not going to need much attention there as the Cannon Cart comes off of its wheels. 1 minion does get taken out by the lightning, but Minion Horde is in and distracted by that Mother Witch. This is the value I was talking about before. From 6 down to 2. Easy defense for Schwarzen.
Yeah, that is a really good situation from him. We do see the pig jump, so the Cannon Cart actually will be able to lock on the Archer Queen, forces out the ability, and with 120 left, 2045, lowest tower for Grico. Schwarzen fairly close to 100% healthy, both towers at 2700 HP.
Fireball comes in just a little bit early there for Grico before the shield comes off the Dark Prince. That's just another small interaction mistake, and now we're going to see Grico go for a full send. It's the ability on the Skeleton King, Skarmy, to defend that Royal Giant, and this is exactly what you want if you're Grico. Damage piling up, Miner in the back, Archer Queen distracted, Minion going to town. We might be going to game number 3 once again.
Yeah, this is where it all happens. Great Minion Horde, great Miner Minion Horde, and that's a lot of pressure on offense. Lightning will come down, able to take out the Dark Goblin. But yeah, that is just great offense. Cannon Cart will go to the left. No, it does switch up and it goes to the right. Great situation for Grico.
Yeah, excellent placement there on the Cannon Cart. Nice catch on the Miner there by Schwarzen, but damage already done. 1204 to 1612. Not enough damage for a Lightning, but now you can see the sellout push here from Schwarzen. Piggy's piling up the left-hand lane, will demand that Skeleton King come out from Grico. Minion Horde plus Cannon Cart on the right-hand side. Pressure, pressure, pressure is the name of the game. We're going to game number 3 once again.
Wow, what a come-from-behind victory. The triple elixir. I mean, it couldn't be stopped. I mean, it was just a great use, and I mean, it was just Miner Minion Horde. It was Skeleton King at the bridge when, there was a lot of troops up. It was nothing crazy. And I mean, maybe you could argue that the RGs shouldn't have been coming out at the end, and maybe you should have tried lightning cycling, and just great pressure is really what it comes down to.
100%. So now we go to game number 3. Schwarzen cannot use the cards that go into that Giant Skelly Magic Archer drill deck, and then for Grico, not going to be able to run back what he just did. And there are a couple cards that really stand out to me that are unavailable, and they're mainly Minion Horde. Mortar also really, really popular, along with Miner. So we'll see where Grico wants to go in game number 3, along with Schwarzen. Schwarzen could go right back to Royal Giant, but the one interesting thing so far today, AC, is we haven't seen any E-Giant yet. And I wonder if here in game number 3, we might finally see that big dude come out.
Yeah, I would love to see it from really either player. I mean, we know how strong it is, and there's just no matchup. I mean, there are going to be a few matchups, but for the most part, you really do have a lot of potential with every single matchup, and I love decks like that. Yes, you're going against, I mean, even when you're going against Mortar, that deck right there would have been very difficult to stop, like an overwhelm push with a Miner Minion Horde, but you can just use the Electro Giant on defense. There's just so much potential every which way, and always a big believer in using the Electro Giant.
Yeah, and especially with the more popular version of the double Earthquake Electro Giant, we haven't seen a lot of Lava Hound have a lot of success over the last week, so going to the double Earthquake instead of the rocket version could be really nice. Grico might want to come out with the Inferno Tower again. We saw him run that in game number 1, and while he did lose, that does mean it is still available, and that's one of the best cards against that E-Giant when it is the rocket matchup. So we'll see if he does want to come out. Schwarzen wants to come out with Earthquake, and also when you look at Grico, no barrel available. no NATO available for his opponent, and no Golden Knight available as well. So you wonder maybe where Grico wants to go as we go into game number 3. No Magic Archer, no EWIZ, no NATO. Could be a great opportunity for Grico to try to go to the skies, but I honestly don't know how well Grico plays with Lava. And in general, like I just said, Lava hasn't been great. How are you feeling about maybe Royal Hogs? How are you feeling about Lava, AC? Is there any win conditions that are really calling out to you as we go to game number 3 for either player, or you think it's still just completely up in the air?
You know, it kills me to say this, but I don't know if I'm a huge fan of Lava. Specifically because you're going against Schwarzen, you know that there is going to be potential for him to repeat RG. You know, he can do slight variants that potentially has, you know, the Hunter and the Zappies and all sorts of potential to just be locked up immediately. It's a great deck. But yeah, I really just haven't liked it in the meta at all. And I do think safer options, not necessarily, you know, just Hog or Miner, but even just Royal Hogs, really anything except Lava.
Okay, all right, so no Lava here for AC as we're about to hop into game number 3. These two players deciding their final 8 cars for their final game of this best of 3. And after watching these first 2 games, you know, usually you kind of have like a feeling, right? Even in that first set, it felt just like Lucas was playing to his utmost in game 2. And so when you went into game number 3, you were like, all right, this is still kind of a coin toss. But Lucas does feel like he's got that momentum that you talked about earlier at the top of the show. I'd say this set feels pretty even so far. And here we go. Schwarzen coming out with what maybe we just saw from Grico. And Grico going to go to he gets a log down there, but he's going to go to Hog Rider, Giant Skelly with guards.
The Hog Giant Skeleton probably going to have the Earthquake as well. Schwarzen going to be running Mortar. And yeah, as long as the Hogs can get the Earthquakes out, it's going to be very difficult for the Mortars to get onto the tower. Fire Spirit a little bit late. You know, after 3 years of the interaction, you know, being in the game, I still don't really know the placement for the spirits off to the side when a Dark Goblin is crossing the bridge.
Yeah, it's definitely a really, really tough one just because that Dark Goblin has such a great range and such a high fire rate. The Fire Spirit, any of the spirits, is definitely a bit of a risky play. So we're probably going to see a log come down. There's the log. Take care of the Miner, clean up all those skellies. Giant Skeleton hasn't been able to do much other than just defend so far, but that's all right for Grico. 2769, the lowest tower here for Schwarzen as he cycles the Dark Goblin offset to the left-hand side. Grico down to 2461 early on as he decides to take the entirety of that Dark Goblin on the chin. Now 2266 is the lowest tower.
Yeah, I think that Hog EQ, and again, we might see the EQ as well. Hopefully we do not. I think that Hog EQ in single elixir was kind of a bad play. I think it's an overextension, and it allowed his opponent to really get too good of a counter push right there. I didn't realize that was even a thing, but it makes sense because I feel like whenever we watch these Hog EQ decks, they always wait to double. They always wait till late in the game before they start using the Earthquake in addition to the Hog.
Yeah, and you can really set yourself up for failure overspending in single with Hog Rider and taking too much damage. So Grico is going to the Firecracker version here. Log to clean up the Dark Goblin guards to protect the Firecracker. You love to see it. And now that Firecracker going to put in some great work against this Skelly King after the ability is popped. Finally, we see a Giant Skeleton, a good amount of HP going to cross the bridge. Now, Firecracker goes to the right-hand side. Earthquake does come in this time now that we are in double. But those bats, not able to activate King, but able to deal with the Hog.
If he had chosen to do so, he would have been able to protect that Firecracker. Instead, it just sets up with the new one. The tower is going to be able to take it out perfectly. Does waste a log, and that log could have been used for the Dark Goblin. A slight misstep, but certainly an understandable one. It is so scary whenever the skeletons stack up the way they sometimes can.
And that Firecracker almost gets sniped by the Dark Goblin, but then steps out of range. Dark Goblin then taken care of. So this Firecracker from Grico is going to get a lot of value when it looked like she might not even make it past her spawn. 2063 to 1771. Schwarzen back in the lead. Hog Rider comes down.
Firecracker's still alive. We are going to see the Earthquake potentially. We do not, and the Firecracker will be taken out, but what do you know? There is another Firecracker on the board. Fireball can only do so much. You know, the next Firecracker is certainly almost in cycle, and you know, it really could be if he used a champion. Game number 3, not using a champion, and going to have a slightly slower cycle because of it.
Yeah, and I like that placement there on the Giant Skelly to try to protect the Inferno Tower, but that Inferno Tower placed low and early on still gets cleaned up by the nice Dark Goblin from Schwarzen. Now comes the Hog plus EQ. Mortar will get no shot there on the Firecracker, and now hopefully will defend this Firecracker already alive as he gets the second one on the board. No, he does not again, and there you go. Firecracker takes one shot from the cannon cart, now alive, logs away the Dark Goblin as the Hog Rider goes down that left-hand lane.
1481 will get the tower down to about 1600 unless it can get the shot.
Wow.
1427 to 1481. It is all whether or not he can just cycle the Earthquakes. There needs to be some minor fireballs on top of the tower. Otherwise, Schwarzen, he just needs to get some pressure down.
16 seconds remain. Miner going to get caught by the guards. No fireball in. There's the fireball, but of course, guards going to get a lot of value there. And Grico turns this set around with back-to-back wins in games 2 and 3. Love to see the Hog EQ pull with the Firecracker, and that Firecracker ended up working out so much better than the Arch Queen would have because of the Starmie, because of that Skeleton King, and that Firecracker splash damage doing great work. We have our first matchup in the lower bracket, I believe, and we have our first matchup here in our upper bracket in round number 2. So it will be Grico and Lucas going head-to-head as Furkan and Schwarzen get sent down below. And this was just great plays from Grico. Yeah, the early Hog Rider plus EQ was maybe a little aggressive, but then most of the Hog Riders that came in after that were calculated when Grico had the Elixir and the Earthquake and Cycle being used on those mortars time and time again. Really, really nice stuff in game number 3.
Yeah, one thing I want to point out is, and this was something that I knew I was going to talk about. It was he made the play, and I was like, okay, this is either great or this is not so great. And I was just figuring out how I wanted to say it. So, 500 HP discrepancy between the two towers. I think it was like 45 seconds left, 30 seconds left, and he goes to the tower with more HP. I couldn't believe it. But then, the Earthquake started to come down with the Hogs. It didn't allow for counter pushes. He was still able to get, a little bit of split lane pressure. And so he couldn't just go all out defense on the left. I loved what he was doing, and it was allowing for him to get offensive logs on the board. And so I just love that he swapped lanes, even though he didn't have a lot of time. And it's just one of those things that I don't know if a lot of players would have done that. And that, is going to be the difference between winning and losing. And it was just such a great play to go to the healthier tower.
Yeah, I mean, just really showcasing the understanding of the matchup there by Grico. I mean, I've heard many times from great Hog Rider players, you always need to be willing to change lanes no matter how late in the game it is, unless it's in like the final 20, 30 seconds. And that's exactly what we saw from Grico. He recognized the matchup, recognized what was going on, changed lanes with the Hog. I saw the same thing, and I was a little surprised, but it felt like by the time that a couple plays had happened and we had time to process what was going on, kind of like what you were just saying, it was just like, oh, huh. This is actually, this was the right play. This is the way it needs to go, because those giant skeletons doing a great job of setting the line. Yes, that was the lane that Schwarzen was focusing on, but Grico was doing a great job of distracting his units and then sending in the Hog Rider time and time again, forcing out those mortars. And the mortars just became a bit of a slow or a stun on the Hog Rider more than anything offensive. Those mortars were not a threat basically at all in that game, especially in the last couple minutes from Schwarzen. And just frustrating, because the other part of it that you were talking about is we really need to see those fireballs plus miners coming on top of tower. It's just a lot harder to pull the trigger on that fireball because you're sending 7 elixir. It's getting cleaned up with 3 from the guards, and the guards still stay alive to help with any sort of small counter push. So, I mean, I don't know, AC, is there a better way to play that matchup? Like, should we have just seen more minor fireballs in general? Or was it just something that just kind of got away from Schwarzen?
I mean, I really think that the only potential is to try to attempt to not mortar on defense. Maybe we see more fireballs on defense, and then, with either bats or you know, however he really wants to defend. It's just tough when your opponent can always go hog EQ, and he always gets the timing where your mortar won't even get a shot off. It felt like 1,000 mortars were played, and it felt like 1,000 mortars did not get any sort of shot on the board, and that is just something you can't afford to let happen. Yeah, I think it really comes down to how he wanted to switch up his defenses as really the only potential for a different end result.
So we will visit back in with the 4 players that we've already seen in just a little bit, including Schwarzen in that lower bracket against Furkan. But now we hop into our 3rd matchup of the day. Moogie, right side of the screen is his picture. Bottom is Titone. Left-hand side, you can see his picture there. And Moogie at the top of your screen running a Cannon Cart, Mighty Miner, Musketeer deck. Looks like it's probably going to be Graveyard with a Snowball.
Fisherman will be able to yank it up, and that Musketeer is going to stay alive, get 3 shots on the tower because of a very nice arrows timing. Yeah, I was thinking 1 shot, and I was thinking, that might be worth it, but 3 shots is certainly worth the damage from the Musketeer.
Yeah, almost evening up the damage on the board. Titone sets up this Skeleton King in the back. He's got RG as his win conditions there. The Zappies coming out for the first time today. We haven't seen them yet. They've been very, very strong in the current meta and not getting touched by the balance updates. As this Royal Giant will connect for maybe, I was going to say 3 shots, but instead it's those last 2 on top of that second Brawler. So now 2 Brawlers, a Mighty Miner, and a Musketeer. Moogie has put himself in a very good spot, but no big spell maybe to deal with that Mother Witch. There we go, Snowball plus arrows.
Yeah, could have been quite scary. Not going to be the case because of just, you know, the Snowball plus the arrows. There's a reason why those 2 cards are so great together in these graveyard decks, because, you know, you don't have to worry about the Dark Goblin when usually that's one of the most difficult cards to worry about. Just Snowball plus arrows instead of the normal Fireball plus, you know, whatever the X spell is with it, does allow for some different offensive opportunities that allow you to get slightly more aggressive.
Yeah, you can get back around 1 elixir more quickly, and we do see Titone in the lead, 1194. He just sent a Fireball plus log on top of that split Royal Recruits and Cannon Cart behind. And the ability used again here by Moogie, spawns 1 pig. And GUI comes down, there's the Mother Witch, there's the Snowball plus arrows.
And he misses the arrows. Wow, you cannot afford to let that happen. 1194 to 1676, but look at all this coming down the right lane. He will be able to potentially get an RG up, and it's just whether or not he can defend this Cannon Cart plus the Goblin Cage. But the Goblin Cage, I mean, the Zappies are locked onto the right thing. Just a great spot for Titone.
Yeah, and that Fisherman just sniped the Musketeer off the board, and that might have been Moogie's last chance. What I was trying to say there, and I just mixed all my words together. But here we go. Titone back on offense, hits that Skeleton King ability, gets the Royal Giant in. There's the cage, but it's just not going to be enough. Titone just picking him apart as this game went on. Moogie started really strong. You love the arrows that got that Musketeer to get 3 shots on the tower, but you got to remember, that just brought the tower down to 2,200, whereas Titone was, I believe, still in the lead at that point. So Moogie kind of evened things up. This deck out of Moogie, a little bit different, a little interesting. Did you like what we saw there? Was it just a bad matchup because of that Mother Witch? But the Mother Witch was cleaned up, but it was always a negative trade. He had the cage to deal with the RG, but I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out this matchup. And you can see on paper, Titone does have it by a lot.
Yeah, you know, I really don't think, I mean, it's hard to argue when the stats show 69 to 31. But I really don't think the matchup was all that bad. I think it really comes down to 1 huge mistake. I mean, he had a 700 HP lead, and it really does come down to the arrows miss. It's as simple as that. And it's kind of fun to point out such an easy mistake, because usually you have to do deep dives. This time it's you gotta hit your arrows.
And you're right, it is just as simple as that, because those arrows come down, they take out the Mother Witch, then that massive counter push that kind of overwhelmed Moogie at the end of that game doesn't exist, right? Because the Mother Witch doesn't spawn as many piggies, she's not still alive, then you don't want to double down with the Zappies, plus the RG, plus the Fish Boy, all those things coming in. And right now we see Moogie activating King early on, but he's already taken 1,200 damage on that right-hand tower, and Moogie maybe just being a little bit careless here in this opening set of his day.
Yeah, one thing I do really want to point out is that Tatone goes in with the drill in a very specific placement to try and protect his ghost from getting activated onto the King Tower. Yes, he knows that he's still going to be able to get the Goblin to the King Tower, but that allowed for his ghost to stay locked onto the Crown Tower. Just a great interaction right there. And yeah, I mean, it's a lot of these matchups are, you know, well versed, and these pros practice it time and time again because there's only so many decks in the meta. And so when you know your opponent is going to try and get that activation, you can have specific outplays that allow for, you know, just you to win the game outright early on. And so just a great heads up play to body block that ghost.
Yeah, some of my favorite plays in the game are those really early predictive plays that once you know the matchup that you're in, you know that the most likely play is to do X, and then you abuse that early on. It's something that we saw Ardent Toas do live in those Snapdragon Mobile series or Snapdragon Pro series NA. And when he won his run, there was a lot of great early predictive plays that, like you said, just kind of won him the game outright so early on. And unfortunate interaction there. Magic Archer locks on top of the E-Wiz, but also a log comes down from Moogie as well to push back just the Giant Skeleton. So I liked what we saw there, but Tatone does still have a decent counter push coming in.
Magic Archer will not be able to take it out fully. We are going to see the Golden Knight placed at the bridge, and then a little bit of pressure. Not going to use the ability, and now he will be able to get that chain onto the tower. A great spot from him, and he will be able to take the lead at this point.
And that was a big misplay by Tatone, just completely missing that NATO, just a waste of 3 elixir. And then again, you know, we talk about being able to put your opponent on something and then abuse it. Knowing that the NATO was not in cycle makes that defense a lot easier to play for Moogie. And there we go. NATO this time pulls the Magic Archer forward. High Magic Archer to get on top of the Inferno. Magic Archer in response from Moogie.
Yeah, and this is the problem with these Giant Skeleton variations. You are so slow, and it allows your opponent to get so aggressive on offense because these Inferno Towers are getting so much value. Yes, they get the Giant Skeleton, but they also stay alive long enough to take out some of the ghosts, to you know, survive long enough to get the E-Wiz locked onto it that allows your own Magic Archer to put in work. So just these Inferno Towers are staying alive and putting in so much work.
Yeah, and as that happens, that Inferno Tower cleaned up the drill, cleaned up the Royal Ghost, cleaned up the Giant Skeleton, helped with the Golden Knight there. And that Magic Archer lineup from Tatone is decimating Moogie's tower, but still Moogie in the lead by about 500 HP, 1127 remaining to 628. Tatone sends in another drill. Tatone would love to close this set out, as we have seen reverse sweeps already today. Magic Archer on top of that Inferno. A bit of a predictive play, but maybe didn't work out exactly how Tatone would have liked.
Yeah, right there, the Inferno Tower does get the snipe. 11:02 to 6:03, 40 seconds left, and EU is forced out at the bridge because he cannot take that jump from the little Fire Spirit. And I mean, these defensive Magic Archers from Moogie are just getting so much value because Tatone cannot take it off the board. The difference between the Barbell and the Log is massive in these situations because your offensive potential is so much different. No dash onto the Magic Archer though.
And I love that high Fire Spirit to get out that Electro Wizard, because then you saw how much value Moogie got from that Inferno Tower. And as the Goblins stack up on both towers, a NATO back from Moogie, a log comes in, NATO forward, maybe a Magic Archer does come down, but it's too late. 143 to 671. We're going to another game number 3, and you love to see it. I think this really shows everyone at home that whether it was through qualifying points or that wild card open, these 8 guys definitely deserve to be here, as every single set today has gone to game number 3. And now it's the defending world champion against Titone. And you can see, though, Titone had the matchup by a mile, 77-23, with almost 300 samples and an exact matchup comparison, 8 for 8 cards. And Moogie plays through a tough matchup. AC, what does that come down to?
I mean, yeah, looking at the stats, that is shocking. That is a healthy sample size as well. So it's not like, it's not 20 games. That is 286 games. I really don't. I mean, a lot of it comes down to great Inferno Towers, because you're getting so. I mean, you're applying a ton of pressure on offense, but you're getting so much value from them. Especially when he was able to snipe the Magic Archer at one time. It is shocking looking at the data and seeing such a bad matchup. Something I really thought it was going to be close to 50-50, maybe even advantageous for Moogie. Just shocking to see.
Yeah, so Titone gets a great matchup, at least on paper there. Although when we watched it in practice, like you said, those Inferno Towers just kept getting so much value time and time again. That, I think, was really the great equalizer. I mean, Moogie was just controlling the board completely. And there was that one time when you were breaking down what the Inferno Tower was doing and how he could play it. And that one Inferno Tower took like 4 units off of the board, which is just an insane amount of value for that building. And Titone could just not break on through. So now here we go, game number 3, and let's take a look at what is available and what is not. Might take me a second to actually find these 2 guys' profiles, but Moogie winning with that deck specifically, I guess the biggest thing that it removes is, you can't really play E-Giant without Tornado, and then for Titone, when you think about game number 1 and game number 2, game number 2, he could just run back what we saw, but I feel like if you had that deck, and then you had that numbers matchup and you still lost, I maybe just set it down for this set and maybe come back to it later on today.
Yeah, I 100% agree. A lot of it comes down to momentum and, how you're just feeling. I really do like switching it up in game number 3.
So Titone cannot use Fireball, Log, Skelly King, Royal Giant. And Moogie looks like he's going to be going to Royal Giant here in game number 3 with Giant Skelly and AQ.
Poison going to come down, and that bomb will be able to take out most of the cannon cart, potentially all of it with the help of the Electro Spirit. And now there is offensive pressure, offensive potential with the Archer Queen. A really good +5 right there, because it is able to take out the bats as well with the Zappy's help. So a lot of potential, and there we go. We do see the RG placed at the bridge, but Inferno Tower in rapid response.
And that Inferno Tower does have to worry about the Zappies and E-Spirit, but obviously those 2 units have to get very, very close to the Inferno to be effective, and by then, usually, the RG is cleaned up off the board. So one of the things Moogie's going to have to be aiming for is either getting a Fish Boy on top of that, predictively. I don't know if he has barrel or not, but sending that across the bridge, or just a Giant Skeleton plus Royal Giant push, as this deck is designed to do. So Moogie probably going to play relatively slow here in single elixir, and there is the Barb Barrel. So Moogie has decent options of getting on top of it, or at least distracting the Inferno.
Titone fully healthy as we head into double elixir. Both players just kind of okay with the start. Nothing too crazy, and that's kind of what we expect when both players are just so good on defense. It's really hard to break through when, both of these are control-type decks.
So minor poison control with Golden Knight and Cannon Cart. I'm a fan of this deck. Lightning coming in, though, for Moogie, and that is going to be trouble. Now there's so many ways for Moogie to break up Titone's defense, and already we're seeing that in spades as the barrel stays alive with the Zappy to keep this Archer Queen completely healthy. Second Royal Giant comes down in a beautifully placed Fisherman. This is trouble for Titone.
The E-Spirit will also come out. The snowball is not going to be enough. 6 seconds left. He's not going to be able to defend.
Oh man, that was just absolutely beautifully orchestrated by our defending world champion. And every single time Moogie might be down, he is never out. The reverse sweep comes in, and that final send, I know we have a little bit of time between games usually. I don't know what's going on with Tasty. I know he's got a lot to deal with all the players and their cameras, but I would love to look at the final moments of that game, even maybe the last 30 seconds, because that was just a brilliantly put together sequence by Moogie. Everything going his way, everything placed perfectly. All the responses. It was the lightning originally, only one lightning used, then the late E-Spirit, then the fact that AQ was still alive and demanding a response, then the perfectly placed fisherman to pull the Golden Knight away. I don't know what you could have done better there, AC. Was that just perfection from your boy Moogie?
I really do think so. I don't know how it happened, but I mean, it felt like every push he was given double elixir, and his opponent was just kind of sluggish. And it's no knock on Tone, but I mean, it was just crazy how much potential each push had. The lightnings, he always had enough for lightning. He always had enough to stick the RG at the bridge when his opponent had 3 elixir left. I couldn't believe what we were seeing, and it was just so simple once double elixir happened.
Yeah.
I don't know how that even happened.
Yeah, just the complete perfect overwhelm there from Moogie, and we got a replay coming in. Thank you so much, Tasty. Give a big shout out to Tasty there in the chat, guys. He's been making this entire tournament run perfectly. There's the lightning, and that's the initial kind of send. These bar barrels, though, AC, look at how much value these barbarians get every time as well.
Yeah, I mean, it was even able to tank for the RG. RG gets almost another shot right there, and you know what's coming at the bridge. Another RG, 15 seconds left. Not going to be able to hang on. Another attempted bar barrel, but just great timing right there to just get, you know, more damage on top of the Golden Knight. Zappy's at the bridge, not even necessary. You know the end result.
Wow.
And RG just fully takes it.
That was just a awesome moment of offense there from Moogie. And you know, you were saying both the decks are control decks. Yes, they were. And then Moogie just completely took that control and ran with it. So our defending world champion still in the mix in our upper bracket. And so far today, as we hop into our 4th matchup here of our original 4 matchups, 4 players from qualifiers, 4 from Wildcard Open. The final one we're going to be looking at is Pandora and Wallace. And this is a really, really exciting one. Pandora kind of got given a bit of a gift from the Clash Royale gods because of Adnan in our first week of qualifiers. Pandora was in our 2nd place spot, but because of some TOS breaches, whatever they may be, we're not exactly sure the exact logistics of that, or details of that, I should say. But that bumped Pandora up. And, you know, you were mentioning when we were going through our event breakdown, if you won one of the qualifiers, you basically were qualified for our finals with how those things shook out. And so Pandora, kind of riding the wave after his very first open qualifier, wasn't able to replicate that greatness over the next 2-3 weeks. But since he did qualify, we didn't see him in the Wildcard Open. But someone we did see in the Wildcard Open was Wallace. And AC, I'm going to let you gush about Wallace here for a moment, because what we saw out of him last weekend, what we've seen out of him here so far in 2022, it feels like it is the 2 tribe representatives that have the best shot at claiming that next golden ticket.
Absolutely. I mean, what Wallace has done has been nothing short of special. I mean, he is so talented. It's just awesome. There's really no other way to put it. I mean, I do believe that he is... I'm trying to figure out where I want to place him on my top... I mean, it really is my top 10 scale, because he's not... I mean, really, he's top 5 or top 3.
Right.
I haven't decided just yet. He's at least top 10, fully minimum. And I really do believe after sending me a message last week and saying, you know, we did a great job casting, I do have to put him in my top 3.
Yeah, I got the same message, and I'm going to put him up there in my top 3 as well for players out there in the world that don't yet have a golden ticket. Obviously, the only person in this competition that does is Moogie, who we just saw. He was able to get, I believe, the 3rd golden ticket after Samuel Basoto and Muhammad Light claimed the first 2. Then Momo claimed the next 2, and he gave those tickets respectively to Moogie and then against Aslan Arden Toas. No surprise that he picked up our 5th golden ticket. So that 6th golden ticket going to Wallace or Lucas, or really anyone still in the mix here. I don't want to give too much favoritism to Wallace and Lucas because they did both come in from the wild card open, and other players like Furkan was able to establish that dominance throughout our qualifiers. So here we go. Wallace, Pandora, 1 momentum player, 1 consistent player based off of a breakdown from AC earlier today. And yeah, now that you got to gush about Wallace, I'm going to do it too. His deck selection, his composure, his poise after losing, his understanding of the macro, his micro placement, every single thing about it is firing on all cylinders about his gameplay. And I'm just excited to see what he's going to bring to the table here as we're looking at a Mortar versus RG matchup here in game number 1, most likely. Pandora top of your screen, Wallace at the bottom.
Hunter will be able to get a lot of value, will be able to get that 3rd shot, and that's exactly what we were looking for. Gets the 4th as well. So that Dark Goblin, yes, it is going to be able to cross the bridge, but it won't get that much damage, especially when he uses the Skeleton King as well.
Yeah, not the best use of the Skeleton King, but you understand it. Wallace not looking to get right back on offense, gets the Tombstone down. It always sucks when you have to use your Skeleton King for a basically just a defensive unit that's not going to be able to stack any souls. But Wallace definitely happy to do that, overtaking the damage and then reset his cycle, reset in general, as that lightning comes down 2677, 2878.
Chooses to use the lightning on defense instead of responding, you know, with his own RG, with Hunter, with, you know, whatever he wanted to choose. So I like it. It got a ton of value, and it does set himself up with the almost lead. I was going to say with the lead, but actually he's down to 6 HP.
And use of the ability there pretty great, as he didn't have a lot of elixir otherwise to deal with that push coming in. Hunter gets a lot of value again. That's twice now that the Hunter has gotten a ton of value for Wallace. Miner goes in, no catch there, but does get the Fish Boy down in the back as the Lightning takes that cannon cart off of its wheels. No King Tower activation here.
This is really cool to see how he wants to play this matchup. A lot of players would have played their RG already. A lot of players, you know, would have done 1,000 things different already. So it's awesome to see him lightning cycle, because, you know, that's the direction he chose for this game. And I don't think a lot of other players would have done that.
And it's a really difficult thing to just lightning cycle. A lot of players get too impatient. They maybe lightning cycle for a little bit and then try to get over aggressive with their RG, and then they put themselves in a bad spot because lightning isn't in cycle to deal with maybe a defensive building. But again, Wallace just being incredibly composed here and goes, all right, I know this matchup well. I know what I have to worry about, and I know that if I just keep getting lightning cycled in, I will have the damage lead.
There is a realistic chance he doesn't play an RG whatsoever. We see the build-up right here. Yes, that is going to be a fireball, but that's just going to allow him to, I mean, to keep playing the way he is, because that's no fireball on tower, and then it allows him to just stack tombstones. And I love the way he's playing this. We do finally get the RG at the bridge, and this lightning paired shortly. If he can take out the Skarmy, no Skarmy takeout, and so the Skarmy will be able to take out the RG full.
But still up by 800 HP with only 70 seconds remaining here, and Wallace just still content with lightning cycling, and that RG push almost felt like it was more so to make the mortar be unavailable and then to get another lightning in. So Tombstone's still on the board. Skelly's still distracting that mortar on the left-hand side. You never really want to have to play a mortar into an already down Tombstone, but that's the situation Pandora put himself in, looking like he just wants to create any sort of offense. And this minion horde plus miner push, not bad. Cannon cart at the bridge, mortar locks on the tower on the left-hand side. High Hunter here to deal with that minion horde. Cannon cart plus Skarmy plus Skeleton King. The overwhelm is real. And now Wallace going to need to log away that Dark Goblin. Is not able, to get any chip damage on that tower. And I mean, with everything that Pandora sent Wallace's way, Wallace just completely controlled this game.
Yeah, that was incredible. Definitely not over yet. We've seen what the Minion Horde can do, but it is going to be close to finish. 10 seconds left. Skeleton King on defense, going to be able to wrap it up. A crazy game from Wallace, just because this is not what we see from players. They don't play RG this way.
Yeah.
And Wallace not using a champion's version in game number 1, going to be running Hunter as his only air targeting unit. Just way different than what we expect. And you're allowed to do that when the end result is this.
Yeah, you see the good game come out there from Pandora, just recognizing, hey, that was a perfectly played game. I was watching Juicy J's stream the other day. Big shout out to Juicy, big fan of him. Excited to see him in Helsinki. But you know, there's a couple times when you watch him lose, and he's like, I just couldn't have done anything better. Like, I remember one of the games was against Codigo, and it was just like Codigo played that perfectly. He just threw up respect to Codigo, going, you know what, that was a perfect game from him. There's nothing I could have done better, and he just moves on. And that's kind of what you have to have Pandora do here in game number 1. You know, he played about as well as he could. When we got into triple elixir, he did what he needed to do. Cannon Cart plus on the right hand, Cannon Cart plus Minion Horde plus Miner on the right hand side, Skeleton King plus Starmie on the left hand side, and Wallace just completely looking at everything in the eyes and going, all right, I've got a response every single time. And, you know, talking about that Hunter over and over, I always love to talk about the Hunter because I still think it's one of the cards that has been in the game for a very long time. It's in a very good spot balance-wise. I still am not great with it because the placements on the Hunter is so important when you talk about those heads-up defenses. You can't just really cycle a Hunter in the back and then have it step up like you can with the Magic Archer and get a lot of value. The Hunter needs to be placed perfectly so many times and protected correctly, and we saw that happen a lot out of Wallace. I mean, I remember at the top of the game, you were like, the Hunter gets a 3rd shot, and oh, wow, it even gets a 4th shot in. And we saw that a couple times from Wallace, just completely knowing that matchup in and out, knowing the interactions from those cards top to bottom, and honestly, doing kind of exactly what we expect out of him after last week's performance.
Yeah, this is exactly what we expect. You know, with the Hunter interactions, there was that one play where he kind of delayed the Hunter when there was the Miner Minion Horde push, and then the Hunter was able to target onto the minions because of it. He placed the Skeleton King in the middle. The Cannon Cart doesn't cross because the Hunter was placed 1 tile up, and so the Cannon Cart would have locked onto the Hunter instead of the tower. I mean, it really is perfect placements, perfect delays, perfect aggressiveness with it. And yeah, I was trying to think why the matchup felt different and why he was able to get away with the lightnings on the tower. And it really does come down to he used Hunter instead of Archer Queen, so the Hunter has a much better, you know, a much better time on defense against those minion hordes at the bridge.
Yep, absolutely. A lot of times that AQ can get distracted by one of the units, whether it be the Miner or the Cannon Cart, whereas that Hunter splash damage coupled with that Electro Spirit were used pretty much perfectly every single time. So now looking at what is and what is not available, obviously for Pandora, every single card in the game still available for him. Wallace on the other side of it, the biggest thing here is obviously going to be the Royal Giant and the Log and the Skeleton King, but the rest of the cards that he used, the Lightning, the Tombstone, the Fish Boy, the Hunter, the E-Spirit, they really only show up mostly in this deck, specifically with Royal Giant. Now, obviously, the spirits can be used anywhere else, so you could use an Ice Spirit or a Fire Spirit, or you might have wanted to use an E-Spirit, so that's not the biggest card to be used up. But I think what we saw, again, and I'm going to keep talking about last weekend with Wallace, was he sets himself up for success in these sets by playing decks early on that don't really inhibit him from playing what he needs to later on when it comes to that matchup conversation. So obviously for Pandora, you know, it's going to be up to him to kind of decide how he can pick apart what Wallace doesn't have available. But when you talk about what Wallace used, he hasn't made that job very easy for Pandora or his analysts.
Yeah, absolutely. Pandora not in the situation that he wants to be in. You know, so if Wallace does win, that's going to be a 4-0 sweep from the momentum guys.
Yeah.
And that is crazy to think about. I certainly thought it was going to be back and forth, maybe 3-1. But right here, if Wallace does win this set, that will be 4-0 for momentum.
And that is an awesome thing for you to point out. Yeah, looking back, it has been Lucas, Grico, and Moogie. which means Furkan, Schwarzen, and Titone, the three from the qualifiers, have just not been able to keep up with these guys that all showed up at that wildcard open. And I'm pretty sure we all expected that to happen, in the sense of the wildcard open is going to have the biggest names, period, that haven't qualified yet. And now you can see that those names really shining through here. And nice use of the E-Spirit, Log, and Archer Queen to kind of stop the Electro Giant that got pulled in by the Fish Boy. Pandora had to hit the panic button in terms of defense, and I think came out in a pretty good spot. Second E-Giant comes down, but AQ ability in brings that tower all the way down to 1644. But Lucas happy to go with a mirrored E-Giant, thinking there's not great defenses, and there you go. That's why. He goes no building, most likely in hand, just has to worry about the Fish Boy, and ends up getting a couple shots there on tower, 2148 to 1644.
Great timing to get the NATO onto the Fisherman, allows his E-Giant to make it to the tower, 2148 to 1644. And yeah, both players playing what the meta, I mean, it's, you know, this is what we want to see. E-Giant Mirror versus the most popular RG variant. 115 left, still anybody's game, but Wallace in a situation where he can start to cycle the E-Giants. Will he go opposite lane? Will he go same lane? That is the question.
And most likely has Skellies in this deck is Wallace, as that's the card we usually see. But, oh, you know what? This is that new E-Giant deck with Mirror that I've seen a lot of people playing. I saw Mo tweet about it, I think, last night or yesterday, just saying that this deck is just broken. And it is funny because Mohamed Light, being as respected and as great as he is, I think 3 times this week he's put up decks. I think one was a Hog deck, one was a Golden Knight Minor Control deck with Mirror, and then the third one was this E-Giant deck with Mirror and Flying Machine. And, you know, it's crazy. Someone like Morton, he puts out a video, and all of a sudden the deck just goes way up in usage. Mohamed Light makes a tweet about a deck, and now it's here the next day in competitive.
E-Giant is able to make it to the tower. We should see another E-Giant cycle shortly. And now the question is, will he be able to get the double E-Giant push? So far, we've seen Pandora pressure well enough where he's always forced out to respawn with defensive troops. Right here, this is where it happens. Cannon will come out. He could potentially NATO opposite lane if he gets aggressive with spells. Instead, Bomber will be able to provide value, but the second RG shot is too much. Pandora in a great situation to cycle. Game should be over. Unless, I mean, something crazy can happen from Wallace. Not going to happen, though.
Lightning comes in, now just needs that Log to land. Log comes down the lane. As Wallace is taking the tower, we're going to game number 3 again. And a great game 2 there from Pandora. Just always having the Fish Boy where he needed it. Always having that Archer Queen ability to pop. And honestly, had that very first Archer Queen connection not happened for Pandora, had Wallace played that E-Giant just a little higher or been able to distract the Archer Queen, we would be seeing probably a 2-game sweep from Wallace. But Pandora strikes early, strikes hard, and then plays great defense throughout the rest of that game. And it was really just all about stacking that single target DPS and using those Fishermen.
Yeah, and it kills me to say this, but I think it does come down a lot to mistakes from Wallace.
Yeah.
You know, that final defense, I would have rather seen a double NATO opposite lane for the RG. Like, you can do so much with that deck. You can do double cannons, you can do singular cannon, double NATO, 1 NATO, 3 bombers. I mean, you have so much available to you, and to allow 2 shots from the RG to get your tower all the way down to lightning log away, that never can happen at the end of the game. He had so much potential once late double, early triple was happening. He just had to survive 1 or 2 more pushes. Instead, the RG does get that final shot. And yeah, gotta chalk it up to Wallace making mistakes as the reason that he lost that game.
Yeah, I mean, really, when you talk about that final defense being misplayed and that early defense being misplayed from the Archer Queen, that's all you need. It's just those two. I guess you can call them glaring mistakes at this point, just because so much damage came in there for Pandora. And now we have the opportunity: consistency versus momentum. I'm going to take that and run with it all day. I was like, man, AC said consistency, momentum. You dropped another great Scrabble word early in the day, and I was like, I got to step up my game. But I love that whole consistency, momentum idea because, yes, that has been the story of the day. All the guys that had come in through the wildcard open have been staying in our upper bracket. Now our final matchup in the first 4 of the day of our 8 finalists, Pandora has the opportunity to turn the set around, get the reverse sweep in, and send Wallace down to the elimination bracket, which if I'm everyone else in this tournament, I am rooting for Pandora at this moment. If you can take away one of Wallace's lives early on, that makes him so much less of a threat as he moves on through the day, even if that means that we get to our grand finals and we have to go to a super grand finals because Wallace came up from the lower bracket. So obviously all those things are still in play. We're going to check in with our bracket after this next game. We're going to take a short break for you guys, use the restroom, refill that popcorn, get some more coffee. But first, we have to go to game number 3 of Pandora versus Wallace. AC, I'm going to put you on the spot now. Wallace, dominant game number 1. Big mistakes, though, in game number 2. Pandora's been pretty consistent through games 1 and 2, even though he did get a bit steamrolled in 1. Who are you going with in this game number 3?
I mean, as soon as I start, okay, yes, Pandora has played a phenomenal set. You know, he is certainly in my top 15, top 20 range. But it's hard to go against Pandora. Hard to go against Wallace. I think he made one mistake, and I think he kind of allows himself one mistake for the day, which means he's done with that.
And as I've said many times before and will say again, Wallace, one of the best players in the world at resetting his mentality after a loss. And I really respect that trait in professionals because I know how tilting a loss can be. And so most likely Pandora now the momentum player and Wallace just going to reset as he does. So Wallace going to one of the most popular games or decks in the game right now. And Pandora goes with the 6-man Musketeer and Goblin Cage. Is this a 6-man graveyard deck, AC?
Yeah, this should be the Snowball Arrows graveyard deck, and that's going to be a lot of pressure on the left side. Will the cannon card be able to lock onto the Ghost? It does, so the Ghost isn't as scary as it could have been. 2530 to 2387. Wallace trying to figure out what he will defend with. Does go in with a giant skeleton, and Pandora should respond with either a cage or he could go with a 6-man.
Yeah, that was a nice interaction there defensively by Pandora. Yes, he had to take a bit of damage, but the Princess Tower locks on the Magic Archer, the Cannon Card plus the Golden Knight on the Royal Ghost. No Magic Archer lineup, no excessive Royal Ghost damage, but does have a slight lead still. 2505 to 2387 is one of these goblins. No, does not get, yes, it does get on tower. There we go, 2385 to 2387, separated by 2 HP. And obviously that other tower for Pandora down to 2787, so we'll see if this becomes a dual lane pressure game as a Magic Archer gets cycled in the back. Oh. And wow, what a weird dash. Does dash a lot farther than you'd think, but does not connect on the tower, even though the recruits were stacked up.
Yeah, certainly an odd dash right there. Shocking that it did not make it to the tower. But shocking that it made it to the recruits whatsoever. Right here, we do finally have a little bit of pressure. Giant Skeleton plus Cannon Card plus the Golden Knight will get the tower down to 1640. It is insane how much damage these Goblin Drills are getting. The Goblins always seem to make it to the tower and always seems to get 3 or 4 stabs.
And the Elixir lead not really in favor here of Pandora, who just keeps taking a bunch of damage from Wallace, but can't seem to even out. And now we see the attempt at a lineup here from the Magic Archer. Cage pops, Magic Archer lines up on that Cannon Cart. Cannon Cart will come off of its wheels. There it is. And that's going to be the game right there. Wallace gets the lineup on the Cannon Cart for like 8 shots from that Magic Archer. And that's going to do it. Like you said, AC, it's all momentum today. Wallace, Moogie, Grico, and Lucas are the winners of our first 4 sets. So the 4 players that were the first to qualify from our first 3 weeks are going to be the 4 players populating that lower bracket, and 2 of them will be saying goodbye today, whether it's Furkan, Schwarzen, Tatone, or Pandora. But this was a great game from Wallace. Doesn't even use the E-Wiz to win this one.
Yeah, I mean, just great usage of, pretty much everything at the bridge. He was winning the bridge battles. The 6-man is so strong against a lot of decks and so weak against others. And right there, that was one of those matchups where it's so weak because yes, the first cycle is good, but your opponent is going to get back to another giant skeleton push, another, you know, magic archer at the bridge. And if you don't have the snowball plus arrows, it's just going to wreak havoc. A great lineup. I was worried that it wasn't going to get the lineup on the tower, but because of the cage popping, it does lock onto the cannon cart. And wow, I mean, 8 shots, 7, 8 shots, whatever it was to end the game. That is just not how you want to lose. So devastating on Pandora's side.
Let's take a look at the end of that game. We do have the replay here, and while this game did feel very much in favor of Wallace, just watch this magic archer and the work that it puts in. You see here, Royal Ghost comes down to defend, then the Giant Skeleton comes down. One of the most important things is protecting your Magic Archer. Now it's all about the NATO, right? NATO lines up the cannon cart, and then you saw it right there. Cage pops, Magic Archer. I think that's 4, 5, 6, 7, and then that 8th and 9th shot come in. That is so tough. And you know, no snowball arrows, as AC just mentioned, and there's just no way to stop that magic archer. Yes, the snowball comes in and pushes it back, but what does he do? He just steps right back up, locks right back onto that cannon cart, and we have our 4 winners and our 4 players that are on the verge of elimination. Let's do a quick bracket check-in here for you guys to take a look at the action we've seen so far today. AC, break it down.
Furkan versus Lucas. Actually, I'm looking at all of these. Every single one of these games went to the 3rd game of the best of 3. Lucas able to squeak out a victory against Furkan. Grico able to squeak out a victory against Schwarzen. Moogie able to squeak out a victory versus Tatone. And Wallace, not necessarily squeaking out a victory. He definitely had control. Messed up game number 2. Game 3, he roars back. A beautiful game in game number 3. It makes me physically sick thinking about losing a best of 3 to 9 magic archer shots onto your tower. I mean, all of these players with the momentum have played a phenomenal set, a phenomenal opener to this playoff format. And you know, I know we're going to have to take a break. I don't know if we're doing winners bracket first or losers, but we are almost to the best of 5 portion of Royale Masters.
Well, I can answer that question for you, AC. We're going to come back. We'll see Lucas versus Grico. Then it'll be Moogie versus Wallace. Then we'll move down to our elimination bracket for 2 back-to-back best of 5s. We'll be giving out $1,500, but we'll also be sending home those 2 players with the money. Royale Masters Gold Edition is halfway through our first day of our finals. We'll be back in 5. Don't go anywhere. page out of AC's book here. It's been momentum all day long, and the consistent players that were able to qualify through our first 3 weeks have seen nothing but struggles today. Honestly, I mean, every single set has gone to the final game number 3, and they've been hopping back into the games, hungry for the action, which has been great for you and me to just be able to just cast, and I'm sure it's been great for people at home watching. I see there's over 1,000 people watching between Twitch and YouTube. Great to see you guys all there. But the guys that qualified early have been struggling. AC, we're staying in the winner's bracket, so those 4 players that qualified early are going to be able to take a little bit of time, watch these games, think about what needs to change. But what have you seen today from these 4 that are up in the top that have really set them apart from those bottom 4?
I'm trying to think, and it's just something goes right for them. Whether it be one game or, you know, both games that they win, there's something there that is the reason why. You know, it was the hog EQs that never allowed the mortar to get the damage off. And in that final game with Wallace, it was the Magic Archer that was able to get the shot. It was the matchup in game number 3 that set it apart. There's always just one thing missing, and, you know, just it's a snowball effect where eventually the player with the momentum is able to get that set victory win.
And talking about even the first set of the day with Lucas, you know, that final game number 3, those minor poisons were absolutely brutal to deal with. Right. The only responses that his opponent had were Skarmy, I think Skellies. The best response would have been the Mighty Miner, but the Mighty Miner was never available up high, or it always had to be used up high to kind of set the line. So deck choice has been a big part of it. Interactions have been a big part of it. And also just great gameplay from these 4 up top. So now narrowed down, Lucas versus Grico. This is another best of 3. Loser of this set will be sent down to the elimination bracket round number 2 to face off against one of the players from that first set in that lower bracket, which we'll be going to in just a little bit. Lucas going back to Minor Mortar in game number 1 with Fire Spirit and Archer Queen with Valkyrie. We'll see if he decides to go Poison or Fireball. And then he'll also have Log in this deck, along with most likely Bats. We'll find out. Goes Cannon card, okay.
So going to be running, I think it was Lucas that was running the Mega Minion Poison variant. We are seeing the Poison, but it was with the Ice Spirit as well, if I'm not mistaken. So we should see the Log, and there we go. We do see the Log out from Lucas. This is where he can really turn up the heat. He can go in with the Earthquake with the Hog Push because of Lucas being so low in Elixir, and that will get the tower down to 2572. Grico choosing to go opposite lane. That way Lucas can't, you know, get the counter pushes up. We will see if that does change as the game goes along.
Yeah, a lot of times when you run into hog decks, you want to go in the same lane, but the Earthquake does change that up a little bit. It frees things up in terms of the way that you have to defend and the way that you want to create offense. Sometimes going opposite lane is the better way to go. We'll see what Lucas wants to do here. His minor poisons should get a good amount of value if that's the route that he wants to get defense or damage in on Grico's towers. But of course, the Giant Skeleton, the best response there, not going to do a lot against the Giant Skelly in terms of the poison.
Wow, Miner only able to get one shot. We do see the Hog place at the bridge going to take the Valk for a walk, so that way, you know, he gets offensive damage. He gets his cycle right. He gets another Hog up soon. But he also does take the Valk for the walk, so the Valk doesn't get any offensive swings on the tower. Just a great play right there, and just great pressure from the Hog player up top.
Nice low placement on that mortar from Lucas, allowed the cannon cart to get value on top of that Hog Rider. So Hog EQ did come in, damage from the Earthquake was there, and now we see a high mortar this time around. Nice log to reset the Hog, gonna make that mortar just have a little bit more life and then stop any sort of hog hit coming in, even though he was about halfway through his swing there. Nice timing from Lucas.
Not going to pop the ability because the poison plus the cannon cart had already taken it to a little bit too low in health. Fire Spirit on Fire Spirit, and 2400 HP, healthiest or lowest tower for Grico. 2100 lowest tower for Lucas. and Lucas going to try and keep the Archer Queen at the bridge, or just above the bridge, so that way the poison takes it out. Not quite, but the cannon cart will take it out.
Yeah, that Fire Spirit came in from Lucas to try to keep that Archer Queen in the poison, so he did spend quite a bit to try to get the AQ off the board, but was not effective. Now a log comes in. Cannon Cart will lock on top of that Giant Skeleton as the AQ pops her ability, 2256 to 2016. And now we see an aggressive Giant Skeleton at the bridge here from Grico. A low mortar to pull the Hog Rider, but he needs damage on top of that Hog Rider. Hog Rider can get maybe 3 swings.
Cannon Cart locked onto the Hog, and there we go. We do see the 3rd swing. Great call right there. Chooses to go all the way into the left side instead of remaining on the right side. Earthquake plus Hog. Not going to be able to take out the mortar in time, so mortar does get a shot. 1600 to 2200 right there. Another Hog, wow. 33 seconds left. This is what Triple Elixir is all about if you're a Hog player.
And that was great defense from Lucas. You know, one of the better Hog players out there in the world. Goes Log plus Valk plus Fire Spirit. It's just enough. Now back to the minor poison game that worked out so well for him in game 3 of his opening set. But Earthquake Cycle comes in, 1450 to 1634. High mortar here to pull the Hog Rider. Fire Spirit to help it off the board. Minor plus poison again in the safe spot. Fire Spirit comes down. Log in for Lucas to stop the Hog hit. And Lucas is going to take game number 1 here with a wait, is he? Oh my goodness.
Oh my, 2 HP separation. Lucas with a beautiful pressure. And I don't know how this continues to happen at Grico. A crazy loss in game number 1. I cannot believe that he was able to get enough pressure with those minor poisons.
Yeah, that was just beautiful, beautiful gameplay. And look at the numbers. 7 out of 8 cards matching up for over 500 samples, and it's a 67-33 matchup. Trust me, I know. I was in this match yesterday, and I was up by 2,000 HP as we got into Triple Elixir and just got overwhelmed by Giant Skeletons, and it's so incredibly frustrating. But you saw Lucas get those Hog defenses locked down. The late game lane change, while it did prove very effective for Grico, was maybe just 1 cycle too late. Maybe if he'd switched just 1 cycle earlier, I literally cycled anything 1 more time on that left-hand tower, and Lucas would have not been able to bridge that gap with his minor poisons. But we called it out early on. The only great way to deal with those minor poisons is with the Giant Skelly. So Giant Skelly out of cycle, it's just Fire Spirit and Skellies. And once again, Lucas just taking that minor poison to victory.
Oh, wow. I mean, it's just like one thing different. If he doesn't leak 0.8 elixir, or 0.2 elixir even, or something like that, I cannot believe the game ended that way. And again for Grico, I mean, these are 2 horrible, horrible losses if you're him. That is such a tough way to lose it.
And I have to say, and it's something that you guys always hear me commend Wallace for, is his poise after a game. Wallace much more just staying locked, dialed in, stares at his phone, thinks about what went wrong. But you saw there Grico was able to kind of smile it off, which it's one of those like painful smile through your teeth where you just, when it's that little HP, it is so brutal. I mean, we've seen 1 HP games numerous times. We saw it at World Finals. We saw it last weekend. Now we're seeing a 2 HP game here in our upper bracket finals and or our upper bracket quarterfinals, I believe. And Lucas comes out on top again with minor poison. Now we've seen Lucas go to minor mortar with a big spell in 3 of his games, and he's only played 4 so far, right? It was game 1, game 3, and then game 1 here again. So Lucas really leaning on that minor mortar, but it doesn't matter because he just played through a rough matchup. I was looking at the chat, people, saying nerf minor, buff minor, and all that. But then, I did see someone say Lucas just playing through an impossible matchup. There it is, Rhinocraft, impossible matchup 1. And I agree. That is a very difficult matchup, but clearly not impossible. And Lucas just still on fire here. But if you're Grico, AC, you can't really fault yourself too much, right?
Yeah, okay, so one thing that I forgot to point out, and I'm glad you're setting me up for this, is he missed every single minor in the final, what felt like 17 minutes. Every single time he was playing skeletons, he was placing the minor, up top instead of down low. and then the Fire Spirit would jump, but it doesn't take the aggro of, you know, one shovel swing from the miner. If one thing changes, I mean, really, the way it was played, I'm sure 90% of the time, Grico walks away with a victory. It just happened to be that one time where he misses every miner. Lucas gets the correct poison timing, he gets the right damage, and he doesn't have that extra 0.01 seconds left on the shot clock where it gets that third shot from the Earthquake.
Right? There's a mountain of things that went perfectly for Lucas, which is really great because it goes back to what you said right when we came back from our break. And, you know, if it's your first time watching competitive Clash Royale and you hear a commentator go, well, things just kind of went their way, you're like, well, duh, they won. But when you've watched competitive Clash Royale year in, year out, game in, game out, you recognize those small things. The fact that, like you said, no miner was caught for what felt like an eternity, one shovel swing, one catch from the Fire Spirit, one more correct placement from the Skellies, one more second for that Earthquake, all of those things just falling, the ball bouncing in the way of the Brazilian Lucas on the left-hand side of your screen here. So here we go. Game number 2, Grico going to need to reset. Comes out with the Skeleton King early on. He's met by a Golden Knight here from Lucas.
If I had to choose who is going to win game 2, I really do have to say we talk about, you know, momentum versus consistency with players. We can also do that with the tournament itself. I think somehow, some way, the opposing player is going to win the game, aka Grico will walk away with game number 2.
All right, so we'll see if we stick with the 3-game sets or if Lucas can pull off our first 2-0 of the day. And it looks like Lucas is going to Golem? Is this looks like a Golem setup, but it could still be a couple other decks out there in the world.
Yeah, I would have to assume you're correct. It could be Electro Giant, and it could be Golem. It really is between those two decks. But when we see the Baby Dragon, does make us lean towards the Golem. And now that we're in double elixir, we will see that shortly. But wow, what a dash from the Golden Knight.
Yeah, and I know that Lucas might not be the biggest fan of the Golden Knight, but just because you're not the biggest fan doesn't mean you're not going to use it. Golden Knight dash comes through there. 2742 Lightning to add insult to injury there. Takes the cannon cart off of its wheels, but that means that this Inferno Dragon should have a pretty clear path to defense as Zappies come down to distract the Brawler, and Inferno on the board to deal with that Baby Dragon. And you can see Lucas setting up in the back. Arrows clean up that Bomber.
How does he want to take out the Inferno Dragon? Golden Knight will get stuck on the Zappies, so the Inferno Dragon will be able to fully take out the Golden Knight. And we still have not seen the tank from Lucas. Lucas, this could be another, you know, situation where he doesn't want to play his win conditions. Sometimes when you have good responses, they're only good responses when you have the necessary elixir. And so we could just see defense, defense, defense until the, you know, triple elixir starts.
High Baby Dragon here to distract, and you could be right, AC, and that is actually one of my favorite things that you watch pros do, is just that patience. We saw Wallace do it with the Lightning RG deck, and now we might be seeing Lucas do the same thing with this probably Golem deck. Last 2 cards, most likely Golem and NATO, but we'll find out. And there's the Golem finally set up in the back, in the weaker of the 2 lanes for Lucas, away from that Inferno Dragon. And Inferno does get pulled by that cage, so Lucas doesn't have to worry about anything on the left-hand side of the board, at least as of right now. Misses the arrows on the Bomber. That is a big mistake, and you see a bit of a grimace on Grico's face.
And we've seen what happens, you know, before in the previous set where he does miss the Mother Witch with the arrows. We do see the second Golem, and that's going to be a healthy push on the right, even though it is down to Golemites. Wow, a visual glitch right there. And right there, I mean, just a lot of pressure. Golem on the tower. Zappies are not going to do enough. It's going to get 2 or 3 swings plus the lightning damage whenever he gets the elixir.
And the death damage going to come in here with the burst, bringing it down to 631. Now the Golemites on the tower, bringing it down well below 500 HP, all the way down to 286. And now it's lightning block time for Grico as he goes in with pressure in both lanes. Great NATO to pull back, and we see our very first 2-0 of the day. And Lucas squeaks by with a 2 HP win in game number 1. And then game number 2, the patience of that Golem play was perfection.
Yeah, Luke is definitely one of, you know, those top 3 players that everybody wants to see in the World Finals. A fantastic set and really setting himself up. But look at the matchup percentage, 82-18, sample size of 146. I mean, even the sample size of 1,070 games and a 74-26 matchup when only 6 of the cards are the same. Crazy matchup advantage. And you know, that's the difference between high level, pro level gameplay and just regular gameplay. Though, you know, that's when you're going to be throwing the golem out in single elixir. That's when you're not over defending. That's when you're not using the lightning immediately whenever you can take the cannon cart off the board. And also technically that's when you hit your arrows. You know, another instance of an arrows miss changed in the game.
And for Lucas, I mean, what a great set. You know, that 2 HP win in game number 1, great game number 2, and it all comes down to the numbers of the matchups. I think it was a 70-30 matchup in game 1, even heavier in favor of his opponent in game number 2. And that just showcases, you know, I'm a big fan of Lucas. I know he's a very vocal pro out there in the world on Twitter. I know some people think it might be a little too much. I know some people think it's completely justified. Like I said, I'm a big fan of Lucas. And I love when this is what I see him doing. Head down, power on through, great gameplay, playing through tough matchups, not getting ahead of himself, not getting down on himself. And that's a scary, scary man that is still in the hunt for his golden ticket. Great plays so far today, 4-1 in games. He takes down the top dog from our early qualifiers in Furkan, and then moves on to take out our very first player from our wildcard open to find a set loss in Grico. Now, we stay with that upper bracket. For our final matchup of the upper bracket of today, we have 3 more games, 3 more matches coming your way. 1 best of 3, 2 best of 5s. The next best of 3 is going to be between Wallace and Moogie, which is a really, really exciting one. I see you getting excited for it, AC. And then, of course, down below, Furkan and Schwarzen, best of 5. Pandora and Titone, best of 5. But now, the matter at hand, the task at hand, Wallace versus Moogie. And this is a really, really tough one to pick. Both these guys played great in their opening sets. They both dropped 1 game. AC, you feeling anything?
I mean, okay, so immediately I just want to point out this was the set where I saw perfection in a loss.
Yep.
And it's so shocking to see that. In Clash Royale, it's so easy to make 1 mistake, 2 mistakes, 3 mistakes per game. Even when you're a pro, everybody makes mistakes. But, you know, right there, we did see a perfect set from both Moogie and Wallace. And I want to see that again. It kills me to say this because I love watching Moogie, and it kills me to say this because I love watching Wallace. I don't care who wins. I want the better player to win. I want the person who shows up in this round to win. And I think both players are going to show up. It's just who can limit those mistakes.
Here we go. Game number 1 of a World Finals caliber matchup. Moogie, our defending world champion, on the top of your screen. At the bottom, the Brazilian, still in the hunt for that golden ticket and maybe one of the biggest favorites out there in the world. Lucas might have something to say about that. Wallace at the bottom.
Archer Queen plus Log shown up top, Log plus Giant Skeleton and Bats shown on the bottom. Wallace could be leaning towards a Hog deck. Up top, we are looking at what looks to be an RG deck. Archer Queen is going to pop its invisibility and take out all the guards. The guards will be able to get those final swings, and Wallace going to be running Miner, no Hog. Could be Mortar or, just an interesting thing so far.
Yeah, looks like it should be that Mortar deck. Could be the one with Musketeer. Could be the one with Archer Queen. We'll find out. And then Big Spill, it's kind of, dealer's choice, whether he wants to go Poison or Fireball. Mother Witch going to get some great value on the bats here. And that Giant Skeleton just in no man's land, in range of the Princess Tower, too far away from the Mother Witch to create any real damage on her early on. And, of course, the Piggies keeping that Giant Skeleton locked up. And it is Mortar here from from Wallace. And we see a quick Archer Queen in response from Moogie. AQ will need something.
Yeah, Archer Queen is able to survive with about 40% health. Guards do take it out fully. And double elixir starting, that means RG in the back, and that means minor pressure opposite side.
Musketeer does come down, so last card most likely going to be Fireball or Poison. And it is going to be Lightning here from Moogie, which means that that Lightning comes in, and the Mortar can go down. Log plus E-Spirit, I like that, and this is kind of what Moogie has shown us, is he's so good at recognizing the best responses his opponent has and using those cheap cards to take them off the board and create a little bit more space for his Royal Giants.
Musketeer does survive long enough. These bats are getting negative value. That's what it comes down to. 5 spawned hogs because of those bats, and now guards are not in cycle, so you can't take out the Archer Queen the way that you usually would. Again, we are going to see the guards fully taken out. This log plus E-Spirit is also scary.
This is so much trouble. The Musketeer gets cleaned up off the board, and now the Royal Giants stacking up at the bridge. Wallace in a lot of trouble. Now a second Musketeer finally comes down here for Wallace, but damage already in, and a lot of damage at that. Now going to maybe go for the guard surround. No, has to go minor defensively. Can't play the bats. Mother Witch is right there, and Moogie just turning this Royal Giant deck into a bridge spam deck, and there's the E-Spirit looking for the bats. This is exactly what Moogie did the last time he played Royal Giant. My God, his understanding of the macro and his opponent's cycle is so amazing.
Yeah, there was nothing Wallace could do. The logs plus the E-Spirits, the high Mother Witches, the matchup itself. I mean, every time the Mother Witch was played, it was always played on top of bats, and that is never what you want to see. And I mean, he even placed, I mean, it wasn't super difficult because usually the bats were, a lot in front of the giant skeleton, but it was dependent on certain placements from the Mother Witch. The bats did cross over the giant skeleton in order for him to get maximum value. Everything was done right from Moogie, and really, I don't know if there was any mistakes from Wallace. It was just perfection plus matchup from Moogie's end.
I will say the one misplay from Wallace was the high Musketeer. I think it was the second Musketeer that was played that was just locked on by the Mother Witch instantly, then logged off the board. And that was maybe the one opportunity where Lucas would have been able to stop the bleeding and kind of reset. But that one sequence of RG in the back, Musketeer out from Lucas, lightning the Musketeer off the board, which means you know your opponent's going to play Mortar. But Mortar is not going to be enough. So what does he have to play? Well, if he responds with bats, that means it's going to give too much value to the Mother Witch. So he's going to go with guards, right? That's what he has to go with. So what does Moogie do? Log plus E-Spirit, then the Mother Witch up high. I loved your mid-cast adjustment of those bats are getting those bats are getting negative value. And that is a really, really good way to put it, because we talked about discipline earlier on in the day, and the discipline that it takes to not play your bats over and over when you don't have anything else to respond. It's a really tough spot to be in, because, well, if you play the guards, the log plus the E-Spirit, or the log plus the Mother Witch, or the E-Spirit plus the Mother Witch is going to give you piggies. You can't play the bats up high even though you need the DPS, and that was just so brilliantly orchestrated by Moogie, painting Wallace into a corner with no way out.
Yeah, just devastation time and time again. It really is. It was a groove, and it was kind of like watching a YouTube video on like how to beat a matchup right there.
Yeah.
Everything was done right. It's, this is one of those times where I talk about like a sandbox mode within Clash Royale, where it's like, oh, your opponent responds with this, you are given 15 seconds to decide how you want to respond. And every single time it felt like he had those 15 seconds where he made the perfect decision. And it was just exactly what we want to see from Moogie's end. And yeah, Wallace just could not do a thing. We know how disciplined he is. We know how poised he is. So obviously he's going to come out with a strong mindset for game number 2. But a lot of momentum for Moogie. And Moogie does have the advantage. He did win the previous time that they played against each other. So, a lot of momentum for Moogie still.
Yeah, and you chess players out there in the world, you're going to kind of hate me because I can't remember exactly what they're called. But when you practice chess, they like set up those scenarios.
They're
for
pawns?
you.
Oh, okay.
Where it's just like, you know, it's as if you joined a chess match like really late in the game, and it's like, well, what's the exact move that you need to make in this scenario? And yeah, I agree. It was basically a masterclass there by Moogie, being, well, if they're gonna play a musketeer in the back, you need to lightning it, because then they're gonna set up the mortar, which means they're gonna defend with guards. So then you have to set in the spirit plus log. Now the only response they have are bats. So now you bring out your mother witch, and that's exactly what we saw. Just a perfect offensive sequence time and time again. 2 games in a row for Moogie since he ran Royal Giant in game number 3 and in game number 1. And I'm going to say it, Moogie might have just shot to the top of my list of some of my favorite Royal Giant players, because I love watching sequences like that over and over. And that's exactly what you have to do when you're playing RG. That's enough gushing about game number 1. Let's talk here about game number 2. Wallace running the most popular Splash Yard deck out in the meta right now. It's the old Splash Yard deck that you guys know and love. It's just the only big change is that the Valkyrie is gone, the Skeleton King is in, so now it's a double graveyard deck, essentially, with that insane Splash Yard control. However, Splash Yard in this meta hasn't been like Splash Yard in other metas where it's not popular. It's basically non-existent. So we'll see if Wallace can do anything here. And already having to deal with a lot early on, will be able to get a good defense in. Ice Wiz is going to get taken off the board, but Goblin's going to stack up early.
Wow, delayed bar barrel or no bar barrel? We do not see any extra defense. He does change it into the counter push, though. Magic Archer behind the King Tower. You know, wow, no ability popped right there. But does force out the E-Wiz because he believed that the ability was going to be placed. Instead, does get the reset, and both players fairly even after this poison does its damage.
I actually like that no pull on the Skeleton King ability. It feels like it could still go either way. You talk about that sandbox view. It'd be nice to see what would have happened had he been able to get that ability off. But with the E-Wiz in cycle, the Magic Archer behind, Wallace might have just seen he needs to overspend or take a lot of damage here. So I'm going to let him overspend, and I'm going to reset. And that is something that you have to be good at when you are playing this type of graveyard deck.
And it really is interesting that he loves this graveyard deck so much. I've seen very limited success. I mean, really the only 2 players that have had success are, you know, Wallace himself and Diego B.
Yeah.
But yeah, he just has fallen in love with his deck right there. Beautiful poison value, going to be able to take out the Cannon card, the Magic Archer, the E-Wiz, half of the Giant Skeleton. Just a great poisonado right there.
1777 to 1626, and this is where Moogie has to start feeling a little bit nervous. Yes, there's still 1:50 left of game time, but now you can see him going with dual lane pressure, because just working down this exact same lane, it's still Splash Yard, and that's still not a great idea to just go into it time and time again. Now we see the high Magic Archer, where the Bar Barrel was looking to try to catch it, but does not, and Magic Archer does not line up. But now Magic Archer protected here for Moogie.
No ability popped once again, and the Golden Knight will go to the Tombstone instead of the tower, instead of anything else. He was at the bridge to protect the tower from targeting onto the Baby Dragon. Baby Dragon, though, will get a lot of value taking out the E-Wiz, the Ghost, and almost staying on the same lane to take out the Giant Skeleton. Instead, crosses just in time to allow for Moogie's tower to target correctly.
And now Wallace, though, is just in a great spot defensively. He's able to clean this up. He's got the barrel out early, looking for that Magic Archer. Yes, the Cannon Cart does come down, and Cannon Cart will lock on the Ice Wiz, so a bit unfortunate there for Wallace, but still make sure that NATO comes in early. And now Poison going to clean up that Magic Archer. Wallace just fully in control at the moment.
Yeah, this is definitely turning into an Ice Wizard cycle party. 30 seconds left, King Tower activated, but that's kind of okay. He's not really looking for damage, you know, through that avenue at this point. Poison going to come down, take out the Cannon Cart. I mean, 20 seconds left. It's really dependent on one last Magic Archer at the bridge. We do...
Gets it. He just gets 4 shots in. Moogie gets the Magic Archer perfectly. Wallace, though, has time to get 1 more poison down. There's the poison. Drill comes in. Moogie needs to cycle back around to a Magic Archer. Over. He lines it up again.
Unreal gameplay at the very end of the game. Gets the shots onto the tower, a little bit too aggressive. Maybe no graveyard. I don't understand it. And Moogie able to walk away with the 2-0 clean sweep over Wallace.
Wow, that Magic Archer play was perfect. You gotta love to watch it because that Magic Archer has to be so perfectly placed and so perfectly timed to get those lineups, and Moogie steals the game from Wallace. The game was really going in Wallace's favor. He was doing a great job getting good poison value, NATOing units together into the poison, getting Bart barrels out early on to make sure the Magic Archer would not line up, but those final 10 seconds in triple elixir still have to be played as perfectly as the other 4 minutes and 50 seconds, and Wallace just lets it slip away from him.
Yeah, I really want to. Yeah, okay, perfect. We have replay in our ears. I really want to look at the replay to figure out how this all went wrong. 30 seconds left, and I really think it's going to come down to this play right here. And there we go. We do see the baby dragon, but the graveyard should not have come down. I think it was too aggressive with the poison, too aggressive with the graveyard. And I'm trying to look. There were no skeleton shots from that graveyard whatsoever.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, I mean, when the King Tower is activated and you have that big of a lead, you do not need to go that aggressive with your graveyard. Now, yes, a lot of times graveyards can come out late game to bait out Elixir up or down low or up high, whatever you want to call it, defensively from your opponent. But this was not the move. Because that King Tower was activated, it just made that graveyard so much less threatening. No skellies, as you said, got on top of the tower, which just allowed Moogie to use that 9 Elixir that was basically not wasted because Wallace did get tower damage, but he didn't clean up as much with the poison as he'd like, and obviously no tower damage from the graveyard. That 9 Elixir was pretty much a non-factor, and then before you knew it, 2 Magic Archer lineups in those final moments. Great replay pull there from the booth, and a great game number 2 from Moogie. So Moogie and Wallace, perfect in their sets number 2, both 4-1 on the day. And now we go down to our 2 best of 5s. So now's a really great time to remind you guys, we are back tomorrow. And there's going to be a lot of best of 5s tomorrow. It's going to be a very full broadcast. We're going to give away the rest of the 25 grand. We're going to give away that golden ticket. So I see a ton of you guys watching over on YouTube. I see you guys watching on Twitch. Make sure you follow on Twitch, subscribe on YouTube, turn on your notifications. And honestly, go and join that Royale Masters Discord. They did great tournaments in 2021. I've loved this tournament in 2022. I imagine they want to keep the ball rolling in 2023, so make sure you are tapped in to what they are doing on their Twitter, on their Discord. And before we get into that run next week where that summer qualifier, that CRL qualifier starts, that's a week from today. So go check out esports.clashroyale.com as well to figure out what those 6 stages are going to be. So if you don't get a golden ticket here tomorrow, you can still get one of those 10 remaining golden tickets in our Clash Royale League qualifier. All right, AC, we're done with the upper bracket. Everyone in the upper bracket gets to relax for the rest of the day. We have 2 players that just got sent down to the lower bracket, and we have the other 4 there waiting. The first one we're going to start with is Furkan versus Schwarzen. How are you feeling about this matchup? It's been a long time since we saw Furkan play, and it's been a little bit less since we saw Schwarzen play. But do you think maybe they go cold, or do you think they're kind of reset mentally?
I would have to assume they're reset mentally. Schwarzen is definitely not a player that I'm worried about. When it comes to professionalism, I mean, really, Morton beats him, and that's it. I mean, Schwarzen has never been the player where everybody's like, oh, raw talent. He's not disciplined. He's not this. I mean, he does have raw talent, but it comes through years and years of practicing, years and years of grinding. I mean, what is he? Top 3, top 2, top 1 in terms of GC 12?
I think he might just be the #1 guy with over 1,000.
I mean, he's so disciplined. On the other side, Furkan, obviously so talented. And he does have experience with the best of 5 because of the finals from week number 3. So
that's
both players have their advantages, and both players, you know, will have their weaknesses.
Schwarzen has 2.2 million cards won in challenges with 1,127 Grand Challenge wins, which is just incredible when you talk about that dedication and that level of consistency. So here we go. Game number 1, Schwarzen at the top going to RG. Furkan at the bottom going to, looks like a mortar deck.
Yeah, Furkan, and that will be a candy card that has a lot of potential on offense. Dark Prince to clean it up. How does Furkan want to choose to defend? Log plus Fire Spirit is going to be the method of choice. 125 left, 25-44 to 28-27. Furkan, solid defense so far. Schwarzen setting himself up for those RGs now that double elixir is on its way.
And you see Furkan cycling that Archer Queen up high, worried that maybe Schwarzen does have that lightning, so trying to not give too much value there. As if she was cycled lower, the lightning would have came in, and then Furkan would have still had to deal with the zappies. So lightning that AQ after she already engaged with the zappies just felt like a bit of a waste, so Schwarzen decides to reset. Furkan goes cannon cart in the back. Schwarzen decides to go giant skelly in the back with a fish boy in tow. We'll see if we see an RG come down here, but that does feel like a bit of an obvious spend. And excuse me, I beg your pardon, this is a graveyard deck from Schwarzen.
Archer Queen to help finish off all the skeletons will be taken out by the poison. So great offense from Schwarzen, and yeah, not running RG, not what we expected. And that's kind of an odd deck choice because he's using all the cards that he would want in his RG decks, and it does take away a lot from him, especially because it is a best of 5.
And that is a really, really important point that you make there, AC. This very unconventional graveyard deck inhibits kind of 2 win conditions. Now, graveyard not as popular as RG, but playing Royal Giant without Fish Boy or Bar Barrel or Zappies just feels a bit dangerous. So we'll see if Schwarzen does want to do that in any of these following games. But as of right now, we are still only in game number 1, and he has to win with this deck in order for it to be unavailable. So we'll see what happens. Nice high block there from Furkan, but Schwarzen does not pull the trigger on the GY.
Yeah, great play from both players right there. Graveyard will come out before the Giant Skeleton does get targeted by the tower. But with the poison already played, it's not really going to affect it. Fisherman will not yank the cannon card to him. Instead, will yank itself to it. And 200 HP separating the 2 players, but Furkan does have both towers down to 2300 HP. Schwarzen does have to go on the right lane.
2370 to 2117. Furkan back by just a couple hundred, but needs to bridge that gap very soon with some minor poison damage, but he has to use that poison defensively. And he's going to have to play a Valkyrie up high here for that AQ plus Dark Prince push.
Valk plays perfectly, will be able to keep itself alive. Poison plus minor plus Fire Spirit will make the game a tie. So no poison on defense, and this is going to be tough to stop. Valk plays perfectly, but I mean, that is a lot of damage to be given up.
Yeah, that's a 600 damage lead now that's gone in Schwarzen's favor with only 30 seconds remaining. So minor plus poison will give you some of that damage, but then that poison unavailable, and you know Schwarzen wants to go back in with another GY, tries to protect the AQ with slipping that minor in there, but not going to be the case. Yes, Furkan is in the lead, and yes, he does send in a minor. Mortar plus Valkyrie to defend, poison out in both directions. Schwarzen going to take aim number 1 here. You see the fist pump, and that will do it. Furkan has had a rough day so far today, 1-3 in games, and now not on the verge of elimination because this is a best of 5, but down 1 early on here. And the odd deck from Schwarzen does pay off, and now that conversation comes back into the mix that we were just having, AC. You don't really have to worry about Royal Giant if you're Furkan at this point, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's some substitutions. You know, you can run a Hunter variation. You can, I mean, there's the Lightning Log Skeleton King version that Wallace pulled out. And so if this is all just a setup for him to be able to use that deck, you know, we can be singing his praises in 10 minutes. But otherwise, yeah, I think that's a lot of the cards that are used. And it is certainly, I mean, look, if you walk away with a win, you walk away with a win. That's what matters first and foremost. We saw it with Adnan. He went up 2-0, used every single spell and card imaginable, and was able to squeak out a Game 5 victory because he did have that momentum. He did have the 2-0 start to the set. So, yes, you're using a lot of cards. but yes, you won game number 1, and that's really what matters.
So going back and looking at the battle log here from Schwarzen, obviously all 8 cards that he just played no longer available, but when you look at his earlier sets, he ran minor mortar fireball with Skeleton King, Cannon Cart, and Dark Goblin. He did run RG, but it was a Lightning Log Fishboy version with Archer Queen and Dark Prince. And here we go, going into game number 2. Furkan setting up a Golden Knight at the bottom. And I was going to say we might see Electro Giant here from Furkan. And already, Knight's connection there with the Golden Knight. Skarmy does come down. The E-Giant turns towards that Cannon card. And this is already a pretty bad start here for Schwarzen. Now down a couple elixir, but does have the Skeleton King on the board, down about 400 plus HP. But obviously still way too early to tell how things are going to go. NATO here, there it is.
Simple NATO right there. Will be able to pop its ability, so we could see a double NATO. We could see just a Golden Knight. The bomber able to get the splash damage on top of all the troops. And I was going to say an aggressive start for Furkan. I mean, and it was, but not over aggressive. A great start to game number 2 for Furkan.
And there you go, perfect-ish Skelly's placement. I know you can still play those Skellies and not get any shots from the Dark Goblin, but that timing just has to be perfect. Cannon Cart set up in the back here to deal with this E-Giant. Going to get a Mortar out relatively soon. Probably Dark Goblin off to the opposite lane. We'll see. Or not the opposite lane, but the opposite side. Skarmy up high. I do love that Skarmies are pretty effective against E-Giants. I think that that's an important interaction in the game.
And I am not sure about this pressure, because I think it's a very simple play to just NATO back and you're not going to get a lot of damage. But I mean, you're just trying to, you don't want to be leaking elixir, so you're just trying to set yourself up with even just an okay you know, defensive opportunity. So I get it. It's kind of just weird, but that's what happens when you go against Electro Giant. You yourself will have weird cycles if you're the Electro Giant user, and you'll also put your opponents in weird cycles on the other side.
And the biggest thing I think for Schwarzen too is then that it allows him to be able to defend with a little bit more freedom, because he doesn't have to worry about the Dark Goblin, the Bats, the Skarmy, all that getting kind of pulled together with the NATO. So keeping that NATO out of cycle has been really important. And now Furkan goes, you know what? I'm tired of this opposite lane pressure. I've already got the damage lead by a lot. I'm just going to start sending E-Giants into the same lane. And then Schwarzen's going to have to readjust once again, because with only 1406 remaining on that right-hand tower and the ability to double Earthquake plus NATO as spell damage, when Schwarzen only has minor plus arrows, Furkan in a very, very good spot here in game number 2.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I wanted to see, and I was kind of surprised to not see it before. Finally is able to set himself up. Mortar will potentially be able to lock on. No, the Golden Knight stays outside of the range, and wow, what a unreal dash right there. I cannot believe it made it to the tower.
And you see Schwarzen, he kind of like throws his hand up and tilts his head like, what the heck, man? Like, how on earth does that Golden Knight always get to tower? And that is a very frustrating connection there. Now with the King Tower activation coming in, that's more of a, I mean, yes, it's going to be effective because the minor plus the arrows seem to be the only way Schwarzen can get on offense, but it's also just a blow to morale there for Schwarzen with the King Tower activated.
Earthquake to take out most of the Mortar. Mortar will get one final shot. Cannon on Cannon Cart, and the Cannon will win that interaction. Skarmy will take out most of the E-Giant, but a great situation for Furkan. Gonna get the dash on top of the Cannon Cart, and you know, his own Cannon again going to stay alive to take out the Mortar. E-Giant pressure will be great, but really this game should be wrapped up.
Not having to use the NATO there, now can use it offensively. That's what we were talking about beforehand, that Schwarzen wanted that NATO out of cycle because that you saw how much work it put in there against all of those swarm units. I mean, literally every single card that Schwarzen has just really suffers to those E-Giant plus NATO holes. And now in game number 2, we're going to go all evened up on to game number 3. Furkan and his win rate with the Electro Giant in the entire run of Royale Masters Gold Edition has been through the roof.
Yeah, and we see right there just why that is the case. Beautiful gameplay. I mean, just great early damage, great knowledge. You know, at the beginning of the game, my thought process was, wow, that's slightly way too aggressive. He started off the game with E-Giant, Golden Knight, and followed it up with the Earthquake.
Yeah.
But it didn't matter because, you know, all your responses beat his offensive attacks. Yes, you can do minor bats, but you can just respond with a NATO. That's a 3 for 5.
Yep.
Yes, you can go in with minor Dart Goblin, but you can just defend with a cannon, and then it's a 3 for 6 while you take minor damage. So you have a lot of opportunities to get huge positive elixir trades on defense, and then you just cycle more E-Giants.
Exactly. You know, and I think it was last week that you were saying Magic Archer is one of those cards that whenever it's in your hand, it needs to be on the board. You need to always have a Magic Archer on the board or have just played one and then baited out a response to it like a fireball. And then when you look back at the numbers there by Furkan, E-Giant was his highest played card. He played it 8 times. Every other card up there was at 7. And then you also have to add in the 3 mirrors. And I believe all 3 of those mirrors were used on E-Giant. Maybe one of them was not. So that's 10 E-Giants minimum that was out there from Furkan. And that's just map control, right? Because so many of those E-Giants didn't even do anything other than just defend at the bridge. But if you want to be a great E-Giant player, that has to be one of your go-to defensive moves. E-Giant up high, deal with the big pushes coming across, especially when they're pushes that look like that, where it's going to be a Skeleton King, it's going to be a Skarmy, it's going to be some bats. Your E-Giant gets so much value. And even though the E-Giant is getting nerfed, that's tower reflective damage. That's not troop reflective damage. Right. So you still need to be able to play it defensively like we saw Furkan do there. And then, yeah, back to what you were talking about, you know, Schwarzen sending in those pushes to bait out the NATOs for negative trades every single time was good in theory, but it just didn't really work out in terms of gameplay. So it looks like Schwarzen's running it back here in game number 3. And Furkan maybe going back to what we saw earlier in the day out of him. I think it was maybe game number 1 that we saw this style of deck. Oh, actually, excuse me, that was game number 1 from Lucas, where he ran the Ice Spirit plus Miner plus Mortar.
So Furkan is going to be using Mortar. Schwarzen is going to be showing signs of the Skeleton King Mortar deck. So Schwarzen not leaning towards the Minion Horde variation, which isn't entirely shocking. It's a scary deck to use sometimes. This could be a lot of damage depending on what his last card is. He can't...
Oh,
wow, prediction log. Wow.
You love to see the predictive log there. Doesn't clean up all the skellies, but just like that, Furkan back in the lead only by a couple hundred HP, but that's also one of those things where Schwarzen sits back and goes, okay, wow, all right, I'm playing maybe a little bit too predictable right now. I did love what we saw there to try to get that Musketeer off the board from Schwarzen with the arrows, allowing that Mortar to get on, which made the Hogs have to come out. But that was a great early send there by Furkan. Now the defensive Mortar to catch the Dark Goblin. And, you know, I attribute this still back to you, AC, when you're talking there's no big spell, and those defensive Mortars need to be utilized.
And so, I mean, I wasn't looking at the deck. And now that I look at the deck, Miner plus Royal Hogs plus Mortar, this is 3 baby win conditions. Kind of, I mean, really just such an odd deck overall. And I don't think he has Earthquake available to him, so he is going to slightly struggle against these Mortars. So far, he has done a great job on defense, though.
Yeah, Furkan's unavailable cards are going to be NATO, Earthquake, Mirror, Golden Knight, E-Giant, Skellies, Bomber, and Cannon. And these defensive Mortars are so important because they really help deal with the Dark Goblin and the Skeleton armies.
Ice Spirit cycled in the back, Skarmy opposite lane. That way he can utilize the Skeleton King's ability. Uses the log late, and I like the way he defended that because he was able to get the log out in time, but most importantly, he didn't allow for the souls to stack on the Skeleton King. He took out the Skarmy after the Skeleton King was off the map.
And Dark Goblin does get a shot in. The Ice Spirit played just a second late there by Furkan, and makes you guys feel any better at home, even some of the best in the world have a hard time timing that Dart Goblin.
We do see another mortar on mortar. Mortar defensively from Furkan, literally his favorite thing in the world at this point in time. Bats will be able to cross the bridge, no Ice Spirit in cycle, so he is going to slightly struggle. The log will come down, and he will be able to clean this up nicely. Mortar does get another shot on the left, but he is able to finally set himself up with offensive pressure right here.
35 HP separates the two. Dark Prince plus Miner plus Ice Spirit makes that Skarmy a non-existent factor. Musketeer at the bridge to deal with the bats, and this was another just great orchestration of offense there from Furkan, who's now in the lead by about 460 HP.
We again see the Miner plus arrows will take out the Musketeer fully. Dark Prince will go into the tower, so that will not get a splash. Cannot believe it did not get the splash right there.
Yeah, I definitely thought that was coming in as well. Dark Prince with the charge, and you can see Schwarzen felt that in real life.
Does get the swing on top of the tower, 716. Fireball gonna come down, plus the log just wants to take out the cannon cart. Doesn't want to allow it to cross the bridge and needs to get the Ice Spirit down in time. Dark Prince comes down just in time as well. Mortar will not lock onto the tower. 12 seconds left. Game should be all but wrapped up. A crazy deck for game number 3, but also the right choice.
Yeah, right? I mean, that's twice now in this set where the unorthodox deck has paid off. Game number 1 for Schwarzen, now game number 3 here for Furkan. And from the early predictive log to that great overwhelm there late game, Schwarzen's number was dialed in by Furkan, just having great responses, putting together incredible offenses. And yeah, like you said, man, weird deck with like 3 win conditions, but it ends up paying off with 11 Musketeers cycled on the board.
So crazy enough, that matchup has never been played before. And yeah, just a great deck. I mean, because he won, just a great deck from Furkan. Just so wild to use Miner, Mortar, and Royal Hogs all together. Schwarzen on the other side running, you know, the regular Miner cannon cart deck. Just not going to match up well when your opponent has 3 different win cons that they can use.
Yeah, and that matchup that we're looking at there is only a 6 of 8, so that really does change the conversation a lot. Even though it's a 70-30 matchup with 6 of 8, those last 2 cards, you know, that's a lot of difference that can happen out there in the world in terms of interactions. So here we go, going on to game number 4. Furkan up 2-1. And now Schwarzen in the position to be eliminated from our competition, walking away in that last place spot. So when we go back and we look at what Furkan has played already, we know he won with E-Giant and Golden Knight. NATO and Earthquake are out of play. Cannon's out of play. Log and Fireball are out of play. So AC, no Ice Spirit, no Mortar, no Log Fireball, no Earthquake, no NATO, no Cannon, no Mirror. Where do you go if you are Schwarzen? I know that's a lot of things to factor in. Could be Royal Hogs. I honestly wouldn't even mind going to the sky.
Well, it can't be Royal Hogs.
Oh yeah, no. I'm sorry for Schwarzen. Yeah,
got it.
Yeah, where does Schwarzen go here? Because all those cards are unavailable for Furkan. I mean, and you can even go to the skies. There is still the Archer Queen available, but no NATO, no Fireball, no Musketeer, no Ice Spirit. Not a bad idea, but maybe still not the best, just because Lava hasn't been great. Anything calling out to you here?
You know, I kind of like the Igor method and just saying, let me run Mortar again. Let me repeat. Because at the end of the day, you do need, I mean, Mortar is eventually going to get the good matchup that you need. And another deck that I could possibly see, and, you know, potentially could see at this point of time still, he could go RG, just a different RG variant. Right now, we are looking at a Royal Hogs 6-man, potentially. We're just going to have to see what the next 6 cards, actually probably just the next 1 card is.
So Goblin Cage does come down for Schwarzen, and he could still be going a lot of ways. There's the great call on the 6-man from AC. 6-man out, Fire Spirit to deal with the left-hand side, and now going to need something E-Barbs for the right. And Ebarb's Mega Minion, Fire Spirit, Baby Dragon, maybe Golem?
Yeah, I think he's probably going to be leaning towards Golem. Schwarzen up right now in damage and also slightly in Elixir, I believe. And just going to set up with the Golden Knight in the back. Furkan going to respond with the Mega Minion. Furkan looks to be just looking for double Elixir.
Yeah.
Schwarzen just going to try and apply pressure before that happens.
We'll see what spell Furkan has. Obviously doesn't have NATO, Fireball, or Log, so the NATO not being available is a tough draw in terms of running Golem. Nice arrows there to take the cannon cart off of its wheels before it can tank for this Baby Dragon. And a fascinating first couple minutes of gameplay here. Now into double, we'll see when Furkan wants to drop that big bag of rocks, and there he is. Protects the Fire Spirit from turning into a pig. Don't know if that was intentional or not, but did end up working out for Furkan. And here's the problem, right? This is a lot of damage, a lot of single target DPS here for Schwarzen.
Yeah, this is going to be a real struggle. It is going to... and there we go, we do see the lightning. So the spell is definitely the name of the game for this game number 4 here. Can he get enough value on top of the Flying Machine plus Tower plus Mother Witch, or, you know, whatever, what have you? The Golden Knights are going to be tough to deal with. I mean, really just not the matchup that Furkan is looking for. The 6-man plus the Royal Hogs is just so much offensive pressure, even when you do have the Ebarbs on defense against this pressure.
So Ebarbs come out to deal with the piggies first, and then the Royal Recruits second, but still damage in 2120, the lowest tower on the board now, and that's from that send mainly, as this Golem is working its way down that right-hand lane. Second Golem down, though, and cannon cart behind. No cage in cycle, no problem, maybe, as the 6-man comes down, the Brawler in the back end, but that Golem will at least burst on tower, and now Furkan has to play defense in the bottom left. Gets that cannon cart out just a little bit late, takes a little bit of damage, but still not too bad of a spot to be in. And with all that and the Baby Dragon splash, Furkan takes the lead with 90 seconds remaining.
Ebarbs plus potential Bar Barrel. I don't think he has Bar Barrel in cycle, so those Royal Hogs are going to eat the tower alive. The question is, how does he want to approach this? Does go in with a Golem in the back. I wasn't sure if we were going to see Golem at the bridge or the back or support troops cycled. Still a lot of options available to him. Does choose to use the Golem in the back, try and set up one last defense, and then maybe a double RG or double Golem push. No lightning just yet, so that could be a Golden Knight dash on the tower, and that's exactly what we see.
And the Golden Knight on the tower, taking for those hoggies. Snowball comes in, Schwarzen steals game number 4. And a bit surprising there on the Goleming up in the back, when it looked like Furkan just needed to defend out. Yes, there's still 50 seconds remaining on the clock with that tower falling down. So maybe Furkan recognized, like, look, I can defend, but I can't just keep defending this in triple if those 6-man just keep stacking up and the Royal Hogs just keep coming down. So in a bit of an odd situation there in game number 4. And this is kind of what we wanted to see out of Schwarzen, right? He goes to Royal Hog 6-man knowing there's no Log, knowing there's no Earthquake, no NATO, no Fireball. You're going to get a lot of value. And since we didn't see a building out of Furkan, he wasn't able to kind of abuse that matchup conversation with something like a bomb tower. And then, of course, again, using that Flying Machine to bait out the Fireballs. Really, really good job there.
Yeah, just really great pressure overall. And, I mean, honestly, just the end of it, he went in with the sellout push, and Furkan didn't really believe him. Yeah, I feel like he could have defended stronger, he could have defended differently, I still think Schwarzen had the advantage once the game was in that position. I think he would have been able to walk away with a victory regardless of how he defended, how he attacked, any of that. But really, there was a sellout push, and Furkan just, truly didn't believe that he was going to be able to take out the tower there.
So here we go, coming to game number 5 in our very first elimination matchup of the entire tournament. Furkan and Schwarzen both even at 2, so now it's a best of 1 to stay alive here in Royale Masters Gold Edition and keep that dream going of getting that golden ticket. Furkan maybe could lean towards something like Graveyard. No Mother Witch, no Snowball, no Arrows, no Poison, no Bard Barrel available for Schwarzen. Also, no Dark Prince, no Zappies, no Giant Skeleton to help set that line up high. So I actually maybe wouldn't mind seeing that out of Furkan, although we haven't seen a lot of Graveyard plays from Furkan in general. And then to remind you guys what we just saw from Furkan, all those cards still available, Lightning still available, Fire Spirit, E-Barbs, Mega Minion, all that. How do you feel about the Graveyard pull in game number 5 if Furkan were to do that? We haven't seen a ton of success from Graveyard. We did see some earlier in the set from Schwarzen, but those are a lot of great cards that are unavailable, namely the Mother Witch and the Poison for Schwarzen.
Yeah, I don't know. Graveyard, I mean, we saw a little bit of potential with the splash art. I really don't think Graveyard is the answer.
Yeah.
It's so fun to think about it because it really does feel like both players are stuck. You know, there's only so many decks that are viable. You know, both players have used cards that are, you know, useful in other decks. He can't really use the regular RG variant on Schwarzen's end, and he's going to be using Skeleton Drill. Furkan on the opposite side could be using RG. And it would be interesting if Schwarzen versus Furkan in game number 5, if both of them were able to use those meta decks.
So Furkan coming out with Royal Ghost, AQ, and E-Spirit. Schwarzen says, I have a spirit of my own. It's fire, so Fire Spirit, Drill, Musketeer, and Skelly King against RG. And I have to say, just off the bat, Furkan's deck does look a little bit more viable.
Archer Queen is going to be able to defend properly, going to be able to pop its ability, so it will take out the Musketeer. Schwarzen shaking his head, 2052 to 2762. It's interesting, like, of all the players, Schwarzen is very, not necessarily emotional, but I mean, he really, it's apparent when he's upset about something.
Yeah, he's been, I think that's a great way to put it. Non-emotional, but emotive, if you will. He's been really showing his kind of emotions on his sleeve in terms of how he feels about every interaction, which, again, not entirely characteristic of him, but also that window is closing, man. That opportunity to get in World Finals is getting smaller and smaller and more narrow. And Schwarzen knows that this Master Tournament is one of his best opportunities. No one wants to get caught in that 6th stage gauntlet that's just about to start next week, which comes off of winning a 20-win challenge. And you know what? No matter how good you are, those 20 wins are still tough to get.
Archer Queen will be able to survive, and so that is going to be scary. He cycles the Musketeer in the back, and oh my goodness, gets the tower down 1252. Stuttering over my own words because I couldn't believe that the tower got down that low. Drill is going to come out on offense, but that RG looks to be kind of a feint. I wouldn't be shocked if we see the RG on the left be the one that gets the damage.
And there you go. Royal Ghost up high, RG behind. There's the E-Spirit to get on top of the guards. Nothing there to take them off the board, though. And now you see the good game called from Furkan, overwhelming in both lanes. And there's that emotion from Schwarzen. He's got to be frustrated being the first person eliminated here at Royale Masters Gold Edition. He had a great run. He squeaked in a 4-way tie to be our last competitor from the qualifying rounds. He has a really up and down day here, right? You know, he starts off, he goes 1-2 in his opening set. Then he comes back, looks like he might just be able to win this thing outright in 4 games. But then Furkan bounces back time and time again. And that's Furkan going 3 out of 4 in his last 4 games played here against Schwarzen. Great stuff there.
Yeah, and we see right here, RG Lightning, the regular variant. I mean, maybe 1 or 2, you know, restrictions if, you know, he can't use the Hunter or, you know, whatever with that. But this is a real deck in game number 5. Does set himself up perfectly. Schwarzen on the other side using mostly a real deck, but definitely not the variant that we often see. And, you know, that's the problem with using certain cards and not setting yourself up for success. And right there, a beautiful deck for game number 5.
You know, the Royal Masters duel format is something that you and I have always been a fan of since its inception last season. But then when you add in that layer of best of 5s, it just becomes really, really difficult to set yourself up, because you have to imagine you're at least going to go to game number 4. Obviously, everyone wants a 3-0 sweep. We haven't seen any of those yet in best of 5s. I don't think. You can correct me if I'm wrong, AC. But that game 4 and game 5 deck draw is a really, really tough task to kind of put your finger on. And we saw there Furkan, you know, in game 4, probably running the most unorthodox deck with 3 win conditions, Royal Hog, Mortar, and Miner. But being able to win that game, just like Schwarzen won game number 1 with an unorthodox deck, but we immediately noticed the overlap in that deck that he ran in game 1 with Royal Giant, which is something that Schwarzen is going to want to leave himself available to play. Whereas Furkan, on the other side of it, I don't really think that using Royal Hogs, Mortar, and Miner and all those kind of odds and ends putting together a deck, I don't think he really inhibited himself in game number 5.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if his decision, I mean, it really did feel like he wanted to go RG final game. So then that does mean that you can throw out everything that you want to, where it doesn't have that overlap. I mean, really, with Lava losing a lot of its strength, it does feel like now we're down to 3 or 4 decks that are viable instead of the full 5 before.
Right, because we're looking at Mortar, obviously, like Mortar, Miner, Control. I guess the 6-man Hogs is another one, but I don't know if it's like quite up in that same tier as Royal Giant, E-Giant, Mortar. And then, like, I guess the other version of things that we've seen are the Golden Knight drill deck with NATO, and then kind of odd graveyard decks. Not odd, but like, you know, the Inferno Dragon, Zappies, Arrows, Snowball version of graveyard. It feels like those are really the main decks that we're kind of playing with in terms of these finals. Is there anything that I'm missing in there, or something that I'm forgetting, or is that basically it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's basically it. There's only so many decks that are viable, and you know, oddly enough, most of those decks don't overlap with each other. Right. So you know, you do have a lot of potential to use whatever you're comfortable with. Even the champions discussion, like, it doesn't overlap that much. The Archer Queen is really only great with the Mortar decks. The Golden Knight is really only great with you know, the Royal Hogs or the Graveyard decks, if you're going to choose to do that. But even then, with the Graveyard decks, I don't think they're that strong. I don't know if we've seen any wins with Graveyard today.
I think we just saw maybe the one from Schwarzen that was that's right, unorthodox Graveyard deck, though.
Exactly, and that might be the only way you can win when you're using those support troops around it.
Yeah, I mean, other win conditions that we've seen throughout this tournament. You know, we've seen Expo a few times to very, very, I think, 0 success. Golem, kind of up and down. You know, that's one that's been out there in the world, but I think the biggest one is the one that we've mentioned numerous times today. Lava Hound just vanished, kind of out of nowhere, and I don't really. Can you break that down for me, or should we just talk about game 1 here?
Yeah, I mean, I think really it does come down to the strength of RG and kind of just getting unlucky matchups. I forgot what it was, but it was like 4 in a row or something where it was Lava versus RG, and the RG always won. So I think that's really what it comes down to.
So here we go, game number 1 of our final match of the day. This is a best of 5 elimination game here in elimination round 1. We did see Schwarzen just get sent home by Furkan. Now it's up to Tone and Pandora to keep that qualifying group alive. And no matter what, at the end of today, all of the players that made it in the wildcard open will remain, and only 2 of the qualifier players will be standing. Will it be Pandora or Titone? We're 1 minute and 15 seconds into this first game. We'll find out very soon.
Titone with some very solid defense overall. RG is not able to get a shot. Log timing should be good. Fisherman doesn't complete the yank, doesn't complete the pull. 125 left. Poison cycled onto the tower, so Titone going to be running Miner, Mortar, Poison. Pandora on the opposite side going to be running what looks to be RG Lightning. we can see other variations, but it's often lightning.
And Titone running an interesting version of Mortar. This is a deck that was pretty popular for a while, but I think one of the things about this deck is it uses so many of the best cards in the meta. The guards, the Mortar, the Giant Skelly, the AQ, and the Log. So, you know, this is another one of those situations where we'll have to watch this set kind of unfold and see where Titone is lacking later in games 3, 4, and 5, if we do get to games 4 and 5.
Giant Skeleton able to survive on 0.08 HP does allow for the Giant Skeleton to take out the Zappies completely, so another reset from both players. And Pandora going to be opting to use the Earthquake instead of the Lightning variant. And a nice Mortar right there gets the Fisherman up top instead of it yanking the Giant Skeleton down low.
But now no Mortar available to deal with this Royal Giant Archer Queen push on the left-hand side, so he goes Miner up high, and then a Log plus guards, but RG will still get one shot in. Does it get the second? Yes, it does. 2102 to 2480 as the Archer Queen tries to connect on the right-hand side, but Zappy's placed just in time, and that AQ on the left will get another shot or two. So guards have to come in again here, and that's a bit of an overspend by Titone in back-to-back defenses.
Yeah, great offensive pressure from Pandora. Gets the left tower down to 2102. Titone doing what he can, but it is so hard for him to get damaged. Pandora is cycling so cautiously, and that just makes it so difficult to work around. Great E-Spirit value. I mean, this is exactly what Pandora is looking for.
Nice poison value there. However, the Archer Queen will step out of that poison going opposite lane, so great placement there by Pandora, and now the AQ will need to be responded to. Guards come down at the last second. She pops her ability and will not get any shots on tower. 2102 to 1895. Titone currently in the lead as he sends in a Miner up high to distract that Giant Skelly and let the RG be the main unit that comes on through. And Zappy's played up high by Pandora, thinking that's where the Miner was going.
E-Spirit does get the jump. This is, I mean, it was obvious what was going to happen. Sets up for the double RG push. The bomb will be able to take it out after the RG just gets one shot. Archer Queen will get a lot of value, and it'll allow the Giant Skeleton to move up. And a great set of interactions for Titone.
Yeah.
Kind of a weird spot, but now with 36 seconds left, only 100 HP separate in the two players.
And you see there Titone kind of still defending that Archer Queen, but splits the guards instead of dropping them right on top to try to create a little bit more of a presence here on this left-hand side. Mortar played into an Earthquake, which is never really what you want to do. And now second Royal Giant down here for Pandora. Things getting dangerous here for Titone. Does not have a Log for that Royal Giant on the right-hand side. Defends the one on the left. That is the better decision. And now it looks like we will see still a win here from Pandora in game number 1.
Yeah, just a great job from Pandora, getting enough offensive pressure, but while still having the remaining elixir to defend. The Zappies got so much value every single time, especially when he had to waste the poisons not on the Zappies. And just a great job from Pandora, a great game 1 to start off this this last best of 5 of the day.
Yeah, that Archer Queen being played up high and offset to the opposite lane every single time made it so that that poison had to be played on the far edge of that Princess Tower of Pandora's, which means for Pandora, he could set up those Zappies back behind that Princess Tower or in the corner time and time again. No value there from the poison on the Zappies, but a ton of value on those Zappies coming down the lane. And then when it came down to those defenses, when the Mortar wasn't in cycle, it was a lot of just guards defense plus a Log, and that's just an easy Log plus an E-Spirit late, right? You want to get the Log down first and then the E-Spirit down later because the Log was coming out early from Titone. So here we go, going on to game number 2 here in our final set of the day. Nice win there from Pandora early on. And now for Pandora, no ability to play the Lightning, the Fish Boy, the Giant Skelly, the Archer Queen, the Royal Giant, the Zappies, and the E-Spirit. And I think the really big thing to take away from that conversation, AC, is that he cannot play the Zappies, the Archer Queen, or the Giant Skeleton as we move forward.
Yeah, that is certainly going to be the thing to look at. One thing that I really loved is that he chose to use Earthquake in this variant.
Yeah.
And it does allow him to, take opposing Archer Queens off the board. It does allow him to have certain decks that really become unusable, remain viable. And so I love that we saw Earthquake from Pandora in game number 1.
Yeah, and excuse me on that. I think maybe I might have said some of the... No, I think that's the right deck. It just doesn't look like the right deck from Titone. Anyway, doesn't matter because Titone lost game number 1, so all the cards that he played are still available here. I don't think there was really a lot of misplays there from Titone. It just feels like there was more so just not a great matchup situation for him there. And Pandora played it really, really well. I love the way that he spaced out his units. I love the fact that that Archer Queen was always creating pressure in that right-hand lane because Titone couldn't really ever ignore any of them. And you saw even late game when the Archer Queen had like maybe a 3rd HP, she would have come across the bridge and popped that ability. That would have been the only one that he could have maybe ignored, but he still split his guards 2 to the right, 1 to the left, up high. So here we go, game number 2.
We do see a King Tower activation. Still kind of one of my favorite interactions. It's not difficult whatsoever, but it's just kind of fun to activate the King Tower already.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that's one of the biggest knocks on the E-Spirit is that King Tower activation, but then when you look at what Titone's playing, which is most likely Royal Giant, that's why we see E-Spirit coupled with Royal Giant so regularly. Just doesn't need to really worry too much about that King Tower damage coming in.
We do see the Fireball on offense. No secondary spell, so the Musketeer will be able to survive. Could be looking at Graveyard up top with the Snowball Arrows variant. Titone on the opposite end, just looking to use RG, but RG with no building.
Yeah, and if Titone is facing off against Graveyard, he does have a lot of great options. The Log, the E-Spirit, the Bats, of course, the Skeleton King, and then the best response is that Mother Witch. So just kind of slow playing these final moments of single elixir. Sorry, I see to cut you off.
Yeah, this could be one of those instances where we really don't see the win condition played all that often. Maybe even potentially into triple elixir.
You think by both of them or just Titone?
No, actually just Pandora.
Oh, just Pandora. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, because it is just going to be so difficult. This is a great setup so far for Titone. The Mother Witch plus Bats is just... It's going to be a miserable time for Pandora to try and get any offense up.
That's a really good point because, we know that interaction from earlier on today, the Snowball plus the arrows have to both land on that Mother Witch with the entirety of the effect of the arrows. And right there you see Graveyard comes out, perfect for Titone. He goes, great, thank you. I was waiting for you to play the GY. Now I can go on offense, and you are in a lot of trouble. Fish Boy pulls that Mighty Miner away. Mighty Miner can still go opposite lane, so that's nice placement there by Pandora, but the other Fish Boy pulls it away again. Damage in on both lanes here, 1777 and 2047 to the lowest tower of Titone being 2566. What a great sequence there for Titone.
Cannon cart cycled in the back. Overtime finally reaching its mark. We do see the 4-2 split, which is exactly what I want to see from Pandora, not giving too much value to the Log Arrows. And Musketeer will be able to get the snipe. Fireball going to come down in response. And very difficult for Pandora to really set himself up with just about anything.
And now the Snowball's out of cycles, so he cannot use the Graveyard because then the Mother Witch would just come down and get a ton of value again. And that's kind of been the name of the game for Titone. Make that Snowball be out of cycle by playing those Bats. That's really all it's been. It's just the Bats. They demand so much of a response because they do so much damage. That Snowball is never available to get a Snowball plus arrows combination on top of that Mother Witch. And there you go, Snowball out once again, this time on a Mother Witch already on the board, but you can go, Titone already has another Mother Witch ready to go.
Yeah, not gonna... Oh my goodness, that is a cannon cart lock onto the tower. Gets 2 shots right there. Does pop the ability, but the ability... It's gonna work, but sometimes these abilities have been popped, and I don't know if it's always really required on Pandora's end.
Yeah, it's kind of tough there. You saw Pandora maybe wanting to clean up some of the swarm units on one side, but that just kind of set the Mighty Miner to his demise on the other. And now an E-Spirit plus a Mother Witch going to give such great defense here for Tatone. And you know, one of those two spells is out of cycle. I think Snowball's out of cycle again. So now we see bats going down up high. This is the name of the game. Now arrows are going to come out, but now we're already back around to another Mother Witch. And Royal Giant getting shots in, or trying to get shots in on that left-hand tower. 1306 now. It's 2489.
Snowball can only do so much. Mother Witch still on the board. 2440 or 2489. He just can't do anything about it. Tough matchup draw for game number 2 on Pandora's end, and brilliant deck choice from Tatone in game number 2. No building, no problem. All his support troops were just staying alive and getting value.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about having the combination of arrows plus Snowball, but you have to deal with the bats and the Mother Witch. AC, is there any way around that, man? I mean, I was trying to think of how Pandora could really put together a good offense, and I just really don't have an answer.
Yeah, when it comes to setting up an offense, I completely agree with that. I think it really has to come down to, I mean, even just throwing cages in the back behind your tower. I like all sorts of weird situations with that deck. I think it comes down to no graveyards on offense until you have that full overwhelm.
Right.
You know, trying to stack goblin cages, trying to stack possibly a double set of recruits, making it to triple elixir. There's a lot of different things that you can do. I don't think any of them were the answer. I think he would have lost regardless. But I definitely think no graveyard was the answer.
Yeah, I agree, because every single time the graveyard came down, there was always the Mother Witch available. There was never the Snowball Arrows combo available, and I think that's a great example of just needing to recognize the matchup and know, like, I mean, you called it really early on. You were like, I don't think this is going to be a game where we don't see the win condition come out, and you were like, no, for Pandora, not Tatone, until triple. And that probably would have been the way to go, because had he been a little bit more cautious about getting those graveyards down, he wouldn't have been in such a damage deficit on both sides of the board, to where when those graveyards did finally come out in triple elixir, he would have been able to min-max a little bit more. And I think that's something that he was not able to do at all in game number 2. So Pandora looks like he's showing E-Giant. Tatone looks like he's showing the drill, as you can see it there with the Golden Knights. So most likely going to have Magic Archer, NATO, E-Wiz in that deck as well. So we'll find out and see exactly what combo he wants to go with. And yeah, Pandora looking like he's going with the new version, that new very popular version of E-Giant.
And so he will be using the lightning with it. I don't think that's what we saw from the previous one. And a very nice activation of the King Tower. I was afraid that E-Wiz was going to have too little HP. I'm sure Pandora was worried about that as well, but he still makes the choice to try and activate the King Tower, and just a great spot for him. It allows him to just set up with cannons, because no spell at all from Tatone besides the Barbarrel Nados.
Yep.
These cannons, these pre-placed cannons, are going to be very effective as this game goes on.
And that King Tower activation really going to help with cleaning up those drills, whether you want to do it with a bomber or, with the bomber or the Golden Knight. We'll find out. First Electro Giant in for Pandora. Drill going to come out defensively. There's the E-Wiz up high. However, when the E-Wiz hits that Flying Machine will reset. Didn't even need to that time. And we'll see if the ability comes out here on this Golden Knight just to take out the bomber. Barrel will do enough after that one swing, 22.95 to 27.35.
And right there is that pre-placed cannon. And wow, Magic Archer does get a shot on the tower as the Flying Machine is flying. It is able to get the lock. We finally see a position where he could go in with a double E-Giant, but not going to be the case right there. 24-18, 21-61. You know, a push, but not the most devastating. just trying to get all the troops low in HP, so that way the flying machine can actually take them completely out.
A little bit of a tickle on the tower there as the E-Giant is about to go down, gets one little zap in, and that's the damage that we're talking about that will be nerfed in the balance changes coming in on Sunday night or Monday morning, depending on how you look at the time. And pre-placed cannon in, as you were talking about before, AC, and that cannon is getting a lot of value, although just a little out of range here is that Golden Knight, and that's a great dash plus Magic Archer lineup.
Yeah, it gets the tower very, very low. And, I mean, we still have not seen the double E-Giant push from Pandora. And right here, we do have to be slightly worried about the Magic Archer snipe. He doesn't have the Magic Archer just yet. And, okay, he is not going to try and worry about that flying machine plus a lightning soon. So, yeah, I mean, just needs to try and get the value.
And I love where that flying machine was kind of hidden in the bodies of both of those E-Giants, knowing there's no big spell. And those flying machines are going to be so frustrating to deal with for Titone, but Pandora needs to make sure he's abusing that fact, that interaction. Nice pull there on the cannon card away. Will not now kite that Electro Giant. And now that drill being played defensively is trouble. E-Giant still has a lot of HP. Another NATO to pull it back, but now the flying machine will connect. Nothing there for the flying machine, and that should be enough for Pandora to take game number 3.
Wow, complete domination from Titone, but it doesn't matter. Pandora gets the push going. Triple Elixir. It is so difficult to stop those E-Giants from just making it to the tower. I mean, even at the very end, misses the final kite. And, I mean, I was certainly leaning towards just chalking it up as a victory, but that's what happens with these E-Giant decks. That's why apparently Muhammad Light was tweeting about this deck. Yeah. The flying machine is so strong, and it is amazing to see it just be a meta card. It was so strong in the Royal Recruits deck, but really that's the only time we ever saw success with it. I love the flying machine as a card. I love the potential with it, and it is nice to see it in another meta deck.
Yeah, right. It really was just the Royal Recruits Royal Hogs deck, and I guess, you know, you could talk about Lava Clone, or sometimes Lava Loon. You would see the flying machine in there. But now with this E-Giant deck, and I'm sure Momo's patting himself on the back, and these guys are going to have to send him a thank you DM, because you saw those flying machines stacking up late game, because that's the other thing about these decks is still, even with that deck, the mirror does make it so that it cycles pretty quickly around. I mean, that's just the benefit of having that card in your deck and still having some of those cheaper defensive cards, including that cannon. I mean, cannon, not only is it really great in terms of how cheap it is, but obviously the damage that it puts out. I think really by far and away the most favorite building in the game is going to be cannon, and then probably Inferno Tower. And then after that, I guess Tombstone. You know, I guess Tombstone and Inferno Tower are kind of like mix and match, but the problem is Tombstone just not healthy enough to deal with those E-Giant decks with Earthquake, and so you see now a bit of a change coming in general. And also when you talk about the spell power that was used there by Pandora, I like that he went with Lightning, because he still should have good options available as we keep moving throughout this set. So when you look at Pandora's wins, no Flying Machine, no Golden Knight, no E-Giant, no NATO, no Lightning, no Earthquake, no Log, right? And then for Titone, on the other side of it, being down just one game, 2-1 here, he doesn't have Fireball Log. So if I'm Titone, and I know I'm playing against someone that does not have Cannon, does not have NATO, does not have Log or Earthquake, that's where you have to start building the deck around those cards specifically being missing, and Lightning not being in there, right? So I honestly, I might go to Mortar, right? I might just go to Mortar. No Earthquake, no Lightning to deal with. You could go Mortar AQ with Valkyrie, and we'll see if that's what Titone wants to do here. Snowball out early on. And for Titone, he does not have Log Fireball as his big spells. No Mother Witch, no Skelly King. So far, it's looking like I could be on the right track.
Yeah, looks like you're spot on. Pandora going to be running Minor Musketeer so far. Still need to see the last couple cards. And yeah, Titone going to be using the Zappies. So could mean Graveyard because of the Zappies.
Exactly. The Zappies change up that conversation a bit, but nope, he does still decide to stick with Mortar, and Pandora goes Mortar as well. So interesting matchup here because Pandora has that Cannon Cart and Musketeer to deal with the mortars that come down from Titone, but Titone also has his own Archer Queen plus mortar to defend the mortars of Pandora.
So Pandora, the differences between the two decks, I mean, yeah, it really comes down to Archer Queen versus Musketeer.
Titone's running Graveyard, I think, also.
Oh, that would make sense. Okay. Going to be running an Archer Queen Mortar Graveyard deck. The Cannon Carts will offset the Mortars, so the Mortars are really not going to get the damage. And yeah, I mean, it's really going to depend. Can Titone defend these miners without giving it too much damage?
And there we go. First Graveyard does come in. Valkyrie right at the bridge. And the miner to pull the Valkyrie away. I don't hate that play. As a matter of fact, I'm a big fan.
Yeah, just as long as the Valk walks up, and that's absolutely what happens. A great play from Pandora. He's going to try and go opposite lane with the mortar, but I mean, I think it's just too easy, too simple to get value. I mean, that right there is just way too much value for Zappies to get. It allows him to get aggressive with another Graveyard push, and Valk on top of the Valk plus the Cannon Cart is going to be nice, but still going to be a bit of damage. We need to see a defensive snowball. Not going to happen, and that's going to eat the tower.
Yeah, Pandora trying to min-max a little bit there, but just not doing the math correctly, and I love that Titone has not gone to the most obvious defense on the mortar until, I guess, right there. You saw the first time he went with the Cannon Cart going opposite lane, then Zappies up high. This time he goes mortar defensively. And I think Pandora has been looking for that Cannon Cart in response right off the bat, and that's not what Titone has given him. But then the Cannon Cart comes down late here, caught by the Valkyrie, Musketeer in range. And now this is a decent little bit of damage for Pandora, but I say little bit for a reason. 2240 to 1115.
Mortar on top of the mortar. Valk will be placed to get the aggro of the defensive mortar from Titone. Trying to win the bridge battle is Pandora, but that is going to be a tough task when your opponent has poison and when your opponent has Archer Queen. And so you're really just never going to be able to walk away with, you know, an advantageous situation.
So Valkyrie comes down to make sure the Fire Spirit doesn't get damage in on that tower, and now a Valkyrie to distract AQ behind, and that Archer Queen will get a lot of value here as that Musketeer is focused on the Valkyrie, so now the AQ can pop her ability if she'd like. There it is, but the Valkyrie will focus on... No, wow, yeah, well, kind of. The Valkyrie got to the Zappy in time to take care of the Archer Queen, but 918 remains on that top right-hand tower as Pandora is just struggling.
Yeah, I mean, he gave up a lot of damage, and at this point, he's kind of, I mean, not totally bringing it back, but also not totally not bringing it back. He's doing a great job of applying pressure, not giving up too much damage. Even when he's giving up poison value, it's because the Musketeer is taking out multiple troops. I would still say it obviously falls heavy in terms of, you know, how the matchup will be decided for Titone. But Pandora's doing a great job of just giving himself a shot.
And I had a feeling there that Titone was not going to Graveyard. I really like that. Now he goes with the late Graveyard after the block comes in up high. Cannon Cart untouched in the back. Now we'll focus on top of that Valkyrie. Snowball comes in, and that is a GG. Well played. We're going to game number 4. Titone doing a good job here. Now
game number 5.
Oh, excuse me. Sorry, game number 5. We're all tied up. I was looking up at the graphic, and we hadn't put in that last little... the last little bit of blue there for Titone. So we went to game number 3 in all 4 of our opening sets. Then it was 2 quick 2-0s in our winners bracket. And now both of our best of 5s have gone the distance. And this is, I mean, that's what you want. That's what you love to see in Clash Royale. That means we are seeing competition that is completely evenly matched. Great deck choices, people playing through bad matchups, people playing through good matchups. We are now at our final game of the day. And when you look at matchups here, AC, pretty much down the middle, but Titone just played it excellently.
Yeah, just the offensive pressure from the Graveyard. I mean, Pandora did a great job of kind of collecting himself and getting a lot of offensive pressure at the end of the game. But really, it came down to, could he get, you know, a decent amount of damage one time? He got that. and then just a delayed graveyard push at the end when he tried to block it. Just a really good recognition of what your opponent is trying to pull off. And yeah, Pandora wasn't able to complete the comeback because just solid gameplay after a solid start from Titone.
So our last game of the day and our last matchup of the day, it's another best of 5 that's going the distance. Pandora and Titone. One of them will be eliminated. One of them will stay alive. And of course, the 2 people that came out or are going to be coming out on top of this first elimination bracket round will be facing the 2 players that lost in the winner's bracket to start this part of our break. So quick housekeeping, make sure you're subscribed to the channel, turn on those notifications. We'll be live tomorrow, same time, same place for our grand finals. Our biggest prize purse giveaway, that golden ticket, that final 6 community golden ticket will be given out tomorrow. You will not want to miss it as we go into game number 5 here from Pandora and Titone. Let's talk a little bit here about matchups. Matchups. So Titone, no Snowball, no Poison, no Mortar, no Archer Queen, no Valkyrie. And also, no Log, no Fireball, no Mother Witch, no Skeleton King, or Royal Giant. I know I said it earlier, but for some reason, I still just feel like GUI is not a bad way to go. We did see Pandora try to play Graveyard earlier. It didn't work out, so Graveyard's still available. But now, no Poison or Snowball or Valkyrie, or Log or Mother Witch. It still just feels like a good pull, but I understand it just hasn't been the greatest win condition throughout this tournament.
Yeah, I mean, the great thing is, you know, especially if you're taking this as seriously as you should, you can work on matchups. You can say, okay, my opponent still has Drill left. It's probably a 50-50 shot that they are going to use Drill. So yeah. What graveyard variant can I build that will win the mirror, or, you know, will win that matchup? You know, you still have Valk available to you. You still have Fireball available. So you can go a quick cycle, no cannon available to you, but you can do a quick cycle Valk Graveyard Fireball. There's a lot of opportunities right here. Pandora, game number 5, electing to go in with the bait deck. I love bait because, you know, you can use that in an early set and have everything available to you. Game number 5, I mean, it still works, but I like using bait in the earlier sets, or in the earlier games.
So Skeleton King out here in defense against this baby dragon. And Titone looking like he could be going maybe to Golem.
I'm trying to figure out if Titone still has... Okay, so Titone does have... Okay, well, he does have Tornado available. But now my research is all for naught.
Yeah, Titone ran Tornado when he ran the drill deck with Golden Knight, the popular the popular drill deck, although it was the version with Royal Ghost, no Giant Skelly.
Baby Dragon placed over the middle, going to be able to walk over and take out the Skeleton King. Dark Goblin is able to lock onto the Baby Dragon, so a great situation for the Dark Goblin. Gets the value he needs to get, but it will require a response. Fire Spirit over the middle. Great placement from Pandora.
Yeah, that was an excellent Fire Spirit from Pandora. Best of 1. One of you goes home. One of you moves on. Wall Breaker's out once again. Titone just going to have to defend or eat the damage. And if he is, then yep, I was going to say, if he's going to take those shots, he's going to golem up.
Drill placed immediately. Does not want to allow for an overwhelm push from the Golem. Does force out the Baby Dragon on the opposite side. Skeleton King will pop its ability, so it is going to get the tower down very low. All the way. Disappeared entirely.
That was a miscalculation, at the least, by Titone. He is still going to go for the dash here. He will get on top of tower, but that is not what you want. As a Golem player with only 30 seconds remaining, he just has to Golem up again and hope for the best, but there's just no way.
Yeah, he can't even afford to use the Golem. He would have to place it at the bridge. We would immediately see the Inferno Tower placed as well. Offensive pressure from the drill, plus the wall breakers, gets the tower down very low. He's going to spam the bridge, not going to matter. Still the right play. But what a game win, and just what pressure. I did not foresee the tower going down to that push.
Yeah, it was just one Goblin Drill out on the left and a Skeleton King plus ability on the right, but that Skeleton King got enough souls from the Goblins falling off of the board to get enough of a presence. I mean, I was shocked as well. Those guys, and I'm sure that Tatone was, because he did not want to spend any more elixir, knowing that he needed to save it to deal with that Inferno Tower. But he needed to drop something and just let that Golem push die, reset, and try again next time around. He was too committed, though, to that push that he'd sent down.
Yeah, and Tatone trying to pull off Golem, but with no success. I still I still want to say, potentially using the Night Witch in that Golem deck is the answer.
Right.
We've seen a lot of limited success from the Golem. I don't know, there was one day where people woke up and used Golem beautifully. And I think it went like 4-0 or 4-1 or 5-1 or something like that.
Yeah, I remember that.
But yeah, again, not having a lot of success. Game number 5. I love bait. I think it's so smart. I love it in earlier games, and now I'm going to change my answer. I love it in game 5s as well.
So we will check in with our bracket in just one moment, but as a quick kind of recap on our day, Schwarzen eliminated, Tatone eliminated, and when you look at our upper bracket, it does feel like Moogie and Lucas are firing on different cylinders right now. AC, is there anything else you want to add to that narrative?
No. I do want to say that it was pretty shocking to see all 4 players from the last chance qualifier be the ones who moved on in round number 1.
Yeah.
So, those consistent players are definitely going to have to bounce back. Other than that, I mean, it was just solid gameplay overall. The 2 players that are in, it's Moogie and Lucas.
Yeah.
Both of those players had some gorgeous sets today.
And that's exactly what we're going to see tomorrow is Moogie versus Lucas in that upper bracket, a world champion versus one of the best in the world. That's going to be a great way for us to start our day. But then you got to remember this part of it. Every single match that the bottom 4 players play for the entire rest of this tournament are all best of 5s. Every single game is an elimination game. And then when we get to our grand finals, it's still an elimination game, because if you got to work your way up from that elimination bracket, you got to play best of 5. So these guys better be practicing. They better be building those decks. And they better be looking at what their opponents played today. And you also better hope that Lucas and Moogie don't show up in the same fashion that they did today, tomorrow. And I'm sure that they will, because they were completely dialed in. Some last-second finishes there, and some of the best Royal Giant gameplay that I have seen in a long time out of AC. One of your favorites. We're about to say goodbye. Josh, anything else you want to say before we let people go enjoy their Saturdays?
It's just going to be sad when I wake up on a Saturday and Sunday and I'm not casting. I get one more day of this, and I just can't wait for it.
All right, guys, that means tomorrow, the Royale Masters Gold Edition Finals are taking place. We'll see who takes that lion's share of the $25,000 prize purse with the $10,000 first place finish, along with that golden ticket. Best of luck to the 6 finalists remaining, and good luck, and thank you for competing to Tatone and Schwarzen. For Joshua, AC, Sharon, I'm Andrew Guy, Tasty Bacon, Dawson, our entire admin team who has been rocking it all throughout Royale Masters Gold Edition. We'll be back tomorrow, and as always, keep on clashing.